I said, oh. Oh, yeah, there it is. Whoop. There it is. We're doing this again. Hey, it's not Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, but welcome back just the same here. Special Thursday edition. All right, we gotta get my cat healthy here, okay? Special Thursday edition of the Brian Campbell Experience live ramble. Thank you for joining me here on this fine, cold ass Thursday, February 20th of the 25 to you folks. Welcome on in. We're gonna do it, okay? We're gonna do some stuff here, all right? No, Max Payne, that was just me grunting trying to get this IFB attached. But we're here, we made it. We're back for another one. We'll be off in time for everybody to go over to Luke Thomas land. A lot going on, by the way, as you already know, in the combat sports news world. I mean, you know, is everybody out here wearing this fantastic Boston Scally cap that makes them look 10 years younger and older at the same time? I mean, who's rocking this 2015 Bo Dallas NXT t-shirt? People that believe, that's who is, okay? So shout out to you guys. Hope you're doing well. No late afternoon coffee today, Lolo, but we're going to get the early morning second cup right here in the official Canyonlands National Park mug. That's what we're talking about, okay? That is what we're talking about. You know it, Cunningham. Let's get ready to ramble. So, what this show is, if this is a first time for you, this show is kind of like your local bar, right? Come on in, 2-drink minimum, smoke them if you got them. I'm going to ramble in circles creatively about the things I'm into, combat sports, you know, 70s final, 90s NBA, whatever's on your mind. AG1, right? Not AG1, still filling me with those vitamins, okay? Believe it. In fact, believe it. Thank you very much. Shout out to Lazy Bed. Also, I'll be answering your questions for as long as this stream lasts, as long as I last, right? As long as you guys last with me. Super chat is open, as you know, not asking you to give me your shekels, but if you want to support the cause, sometimes it gets the questions answered quicker. I don't know, whatever, right? Whatever, right? Okay, great. Let's go. Save the devil music for yourself, though, Mr. 69. Thank you. Old men are going to do what they do. They're going to ramble, right? Yep. Have to eat thirsty Thursday. If you celebrate, ramble, old man, ramble. And also Jay saying, how's the box looking like to you at this moment? Well, why don't we ask Randy Cooter, right? I don't think that gentleman likes grass on the playing field. If you know what I'm talking about, okay? Max Payne knows, right? Welcome to this place. I'll show you everything, okay? I mean, not everything. We don't have the only pipes launched yet. Only if we need it, right? Only if our UFC strawweight career goes south will we be selling butthole. But enough ridiculi. It's it's colder than a witch's breast implant right now out there in the Northeast. I don't know where you're tuning in from. But if you're battling the cold, if you're battling the seasonal winter depression, this is the thick of it, right? This is it right now. So keep fighting, keep going, hold on tight. So come on, loose leg. Yeah, I mean, is there anything in life 38 Special can't fix? You know, I mean the song, not the firearm necessarily, but there you go. All right. So hope you're doing well up here. All right. Hope you're fighting the good fight. It is a great time to be alive. There's challenges, right? We'll get an update on Reggie today. A lot going on. We all got some challenges in life, but we keep fighting. We keep showing up. Remix knows you got to call and say sometimes it's so cold that you're just not getting out of bed. It's just not happening. That's the reality. Okay. I know people in Minnesota and upstate Vermont are like, BC, stop crying down there in southern New England. Okay. We deal with it a lot more. Imagine if you're out in Montana listening to me, but it's been a cold one. We're going to fight through it. We're going to get through it. Updates on the week here, right? BCX, we're slow this week, right? I hope you checked out a fantastic live inside the box that Rafe Boogs and I put out on Tuesday. Still very fresh despite the breaking news over the last 24 hours of 48 hours of Floyd Schofield Jr. pulling out of that Shakur Stevenson fight. We'll get into that today. So hopefully you're sipping on some coffee with Lil Lou. Hopefully, right? You're fired up like I am a little bit here. And hopefully, I have no idea what I'm talking. Sometimes on this show, I'll just go off. I'll get off an exit, not realize where I am. I'm like, excuse me, sir, could you give me directions to the interstate? Fuck your mom. All right, thank you, very much. A lot going on. Obviously, we got the biggest fight card of the century this weekend. We've got a lot of UFC news overnight as Dana slid in, right here. Right? Hernes De La Cruz. How big of a phoner does BC have over the news last night? We're going to get into that very shortly. A lot of UFC stuff, a lot of Dana White stuff, a lot of Dick's Insider, right? Does coffee give you the run? Not give you the run. No, coffee does not give me the runs. Apple juice gives me the runs. Did you need to know that? No, no, you definitely didn't. What I'm trying to say is BCX, we're slow at the moment, but we're working a lot behind the scenes. Finally, my theme song, my intro, it's just about ready. So shout out to Mikey, as always, for having my back. We'll be seeing that soon. Hopefully we'll be seeing an uptick in content, new guests, new ideas, new whatever. But, it's life dependent. And right now life's been challenging a little bit, but life schedule next weekend, not this weekend. This weekend is the last crescendo, right? This weekend is Henry Cejudo back in Seattle. This weekend is a lot, but next weekend, Saturday, March 1st, your boy BC on the call. Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr., PBC on Prime pay-per-view. So get ready to check that out, okay? That's something to look forward to, future coming attractions in the future. Morning combat news. We'll be back Friday, 11 a.m. remotely. Luke Thomas, your boy BC, probably looking at a lot of these things we'll be talking about today and spinning them forward with all this news, the change. Toptoria has relinquished his belt ox, and there we go. Just somewhere in America, somewhere in greater Atlanta, Jed Meshew number 2 is losing his ish right now over Toptoria, giving up that title and maybe moving up. But thank you for the support as always, Green Bandana. Thank you. It's not easy. It's not easy out here, right? In the shark infested waters, but we're fighting for jobs. We're fighting for opportunities. Here's the deal. You give me just give me the opportunity. I'll show you exactly what I bring to the table. But you got to get the opportunity. You got to get invited to the chair, right? The thing that I do, though, take as long as you want inviting me to the chair, because I'm only getting better every day, okay? That's the thing. You got to get better every day. You got to keep getting better every single day, all right? Fun fact, BC says Dick's Insider. Cejudo translates to big bushy eyebrow. I'm wondering if Cejudo's translating now to regretting taking 3 years off at the peak of his prime, although it did lead to him meeting girls and starting a family, so that's not nothing, right? That is not nothing. Shout out to everybody in Texas. Say hello to Big Brown in a little bit, right? Coming at you, right? Indeed. Indiana love from Al Drum. Thank you very much. Shout out to Michigan, right? It's housing Rafe at the moment. Shout out to Indiana. Little Pink Houses, Evansville, Don Mattingly. We know the story, right? Terre Haute, Larry Bird. Come on, we know the story. We know the backstory here. I will not be watching hockey tonight, Novus 22, but I do hear a lot of people talking about these 4 nations tourney. I'm the only nations I'm focusing on are the ones that hopefully we're not going to war with soon after this administrational change. But I don't pick sides. I just, like Shab, I just pick my nose and eat it on camera. Indeed. All right. An end of the BS, end of the ridiculi, possibly. JN sliding in with early support for the chat, although we'll get to this live chat later. Thank you, JN. Peak MMA was MK 3 times a week. See, that's an interesting statement, because I largely miss 3 times a week MK, but that's like out of selfish reasons. I love this show. I love coming on here and arguing and performing, right? So I miss it in that regard, but there was a feeling, especially during slower times, that it was hard to fill MK 3 times a week. You had to have gimmicks, you had to have segments, you had to have different things going on. I have seen a lot of people, Luke Thomas included, be happy that we're down to 2. So it's really dependent upon what you love, but if given the opportunity, I'd be back on 3 days a week. I want to be turning this camera on and have an excuse to get in front of this microphone every single day of the week. Keeps me fresh, keeps me connected, keeps me hopefully spreading something to you guys more than just third-rate STDs, right? Hopefully spreading some goodwill, some hope, what have you. Let's get into the 3 topics I'm going to present for you. Then at the back end of this hour, we will open up the floor. I say we as if there's like a team of 10 people. It's me. Okay. Shout out to Mikey too, but it's me. We will open up the floor to you folks. Thank you for adjusting your time schedule to be with me today, right now, right here, right now. Jesus Jones, underrated one-hit wonder of the early 90s. Indeed. Right. You know what I heard on the radio this morning when I was dropping the dog off at the vet? I was thank you, Serenity. They appreciate that plug right there. Anybody else get down with 1991 Silent Lucidity by Queensryche? Like, I didn't love it when it came out back then, but then I heard it in Cobra Kai's final half season that they just put out. The kids and I caught it on Netflix. I got a lot of opinions on that if you care. We'll get to that maybe. But that song, I was like, man, they picked the right song for the right moment. I was rocking out to that with nobody around, just me and Sasha the dog this morning. Hold on, drop the phone. You always got to keep the bat phone ready just in case, just in case. All right. Real quick mention here from Enigma Crunch. I need MK 5 days a week. The only MMA morning podcast, hate having to wait until 1 for Ariel when MK not on. Well, today you get BC in the morning, LT in the afternoon, right? Does Ariel go on Thursdays? I don't know. Maybe there's some boys in the back, but happy to fill your content holes consensually if that's how you get down. We know how Sandine used to get down in the military after hours, right? Yeah, soldiers fill the hotels on the weekends. I like not how we get BC content instead of it. Well, that's kind of, to be fair, Sandine, and I love you, brother. That's kind of I guess the point of me launching this channel when MK went from 3 to 1 or 3 to not at all, and then 1 day a week, it was me wanting to stay sharp. It's funny. Somebody asked me the other day somebody emailed me and was like, "Hey, I want to be a BC. I want to get into this business." And like I always say, I'm like, take my advice with a grain of salt. The business changes every day. Everybody's got a different weird path to get to where they are to the top. But I always going to give you the tenets of what I think is important in any era, the non-negotiables, the things that you need to do and be. And what I always say is reps. And there's nothing like reps. Nothing beats reps. Nothing replaces reps. The only way to improve doing something is doing it, no matter the size of the audience you're doing it in front of, right? I remember particularly when I went from ESPN to CBS in 2017 and went from podcasting like 1 day a week to upwards of 4 days a week. And that, if anything, is what took me to another level. There's a lot of things that have taken me to another place, right? But the consistency of the reps of getting out there. So yeah, I want to be on the mic every day. I'm really just having a conversation with my own head. Let's get into it. Topic number 1, you guessed it. You knew it. You tuned in here for it. Dana White last night. He was at the tough filming. He had to come on camera and say, hold on, guys. I'm going to have big announcements later. And I was nervous as SH because I think we know right now that there is a major issue with MMA journalism and boxing journalism right now. I mean, the largest issue is the fake news that's out there, the people that aren't credible journalists, but have created some level of platform and are jumping at stories mixed with the fake accounts that are trying to lure people. And I saw a lot of accounts putting out the possibility of Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane at UFC 314 or 15. And I was just like, good Lord, no. Wouldn't that be the ultimate want if that happened, especially for the interim title? But it didn't. All right. Tell him, Sweatpants, you got to let you distract me. I'm gone. Right. You got to let this guy cook. Let this guy cook a little bit. Okay. All right. Well, totally crossed out, crisscross style. Indeed. Yes. The biggest news of Dana's drop. I mean, this wasn't, he didn't just bring relief. He dropped a lot of bombs on the future schedule coming up. But the greatest of these seems to be Ilia Topuria, the great featherweight champion, the defending, at least where I come from, 2024 MMA Fighter of the Year, has officially given up the belt to move up to 155. Now, no announcement or teases to the idea that he's going to get a day one title shot against Islam Makhachev. But as I have said ad nauseum, including on MMA Fighting's Below the Links last Thursday, which led to Jed Meshew having this apoplectic Luke Thomasian type of breakout, meltdown, break in, break down, is that whole idea of like him not wanting fighters right when they win the title or soon after to just chase the champ thing. But I think this is a little different from that. Part of this is Topuria, sorry, I'm caught in Connor speak. Topuria coming out and saying, look, I'm having trouble making this weight class. I think I've done, and even when he says, I think I've already done enough at featherweight, and that may upset people because of the one title defense. Could you really argue, though? I mean, he went in there in 2024 against two top-rated pound-for-pound guys in Volkanovski and Holloway and did things to them that nobody does, right? Well, nobody except for Islam, who just did it to Volkanovski before. Different situation, though. So, yes, I think built into this news is the idea that Topuria is going to face Islam at the end of this year. Why? Well, A, because it's the best fight you can make in all of MMA, but B, because I truly believe Islam is heading north in weight sooner rather than later at 33 to rightfully maximize his opportunity while also staying true to the Abdul Manap coaching tree and the plans Uncle has put in, Uncle Manap, as they like to call him, for Usman Nurmagomedov's eventual arrival in the UFC, eventual at lightweight. So I'm not against this. I'm for this completely because I think Topuria is a special talent. So whether it is Islam first, and because of how special this talent is and the almost unrivaled, I mean, for anyone to have had a better year than what Alex Pereira did last year to win Fighter of the Year votes, you've literally got to put forth the kind of year that's arguably in contention for the best year in combat sports history, which I seem to by default always give to 2011 John Jones when he won 4 fights, captured the title, and made Machida's eyes roll into the back of his head when he dropped him from that standing gauntlet. And for like 2 seconds in the ESPN newsroom, I'm like, did I just witness a death? Yeah, that run right there. I don't hate this. I wouldn't even hate it if UFC was like, okay, before you fight Makhachev, we either need you to fight Poirier to retire him, Connor to pass the torch and retire him, or anybody else. However they want to do it, I'm in on it. I don't think he should have to wait around if he doesn't want to. But obviously, I think the first step was what he did. You gotta give up the belt. We're not going to just let you be the next in line of people that are like, oh, I'm a new champion. Let me fight one division north, my next fight, and become an all-timer. I'd like to slow the roll a bit on there, only for situations like this, potentially, when you can make the best fight in the sport. Okay, so that's the Topuria news. What's tied into that, of course, is now we will see a vacant title bout between Alexander Volkanovski and very deserving top contender Diego Lopez. I believe that is UFC 314. Let me get my ish in order here so I can understand this, so we can break this down the right way. So if you're scoring at home, it is April 12th. Miami, Florida. Is Miami a new major? Because the matchmaking on here is looking like it's Abu Dhabi in October, right? Like, this is pretty damn good. The card as it seems to be put together right now, especially that main card, just absolute bangers. But let me focus first on the main event. I understand what they're doing. Lopez is a rising name. Brazilian, fights out of Mexico, exciting style, great look, all that. So to have a 36-year-old living legend of Volkanovski who's still viable in this division, it's kind of the perfect matchmaking because you're using Volkanovski's name to put it in the main event and sell the fight. And either he becomes a 2-division champion and adds to his legacy, or he does the JOB pro wrestling style and really puts that stamp that Diego Lopez, even though we just lost to Poirier at 145, is worthy of being the man, is worthy of being that face. Obviously, tough being Movsar Evloev, tough having that huge win streak, but not being rewarded in those regards in terms of the entertainment value or the company placing him in a spot to succeed. Also, you're not going to sell that Lopez Movsar as a main event. But my only issue, it's happened before, but we're going to put a guy in a UFC title fight, not only coming off consecutive losses, but coming off consecutive devastating knockout losses. When in totality here, the 36-year-old Volkanovski, who did not take an interim fight after losing to Ilya a year and 3 days ago, has not come back and beaten a top 5 or 7 guy to remind us who he is, all of that. probably because he thought this could happen, that he could be waiting by the phone as the veteran. But he's lost 3 of his last 4. Let's wake up and be honest with this. I know there's special situations. I know he moved up and challenged Islam, dared to be great. Great first fight. There was an opening for a second fight. We've covered ad nauseum that he was probably a little too bored sitting around and took fights he shouldn't have, given his stature at that time. Short training camps, ran into a head kick from Islam. But he's lost 3 of his last 4, including 2 by devastating knockout. And we're just going to throw him into this title fight? Like, as much as the dump from Dana overnight, I think there's a lot to talk about. And it's largely very good, if not great. I love the fights he's rolled out. I freaking love the signing of Patricio Pitbull, which I'll get into in a second. But this feels a little shameless. Maybe as shameless as when Chris Cyborg wasn't ready to debut the 145 division in Brooklyn when was that 2018, 2019, that early February card or what have you, whatever it was. And, we got Holly Holm fresh off of 2 defeats, including one where she was put to sleep in a title loss, moving up to a new division, taking on, GDR in a sense, just to put the belt on somebody so when Cyborg is ready. Now, maybe you can counter and say, well, that was Holly moving up in weight. Is it any different than Joanna losing her title, being off a defeat, but then they plug her in at 125 against Valentina for the vacant title? I mean, maybe not so different, but at least in those situations, it's a different division. What do you got, Rico? It's shameless, BC. It's always just about pay-per-view. Now, you always have to remember that, Rico, right? Always. It's always about that. That's why I told Jed in our big argument about Topuria maybe fighting Makhachev. At the end of the day, it's going to be about what are the best fights we can make. That's what it's going to be. What's going to sell? What's going to move money? So clearly, I understand why Volkanovski's here. Clearly. But it's just a little weird. Now, if he started a new reign, if he won back the title, it's not that we would all put an asterisk and say, hey, you lost 3 or 4 coming in. We'd say he's a 2-division champion. You can make very keen comparisons in this case to Jose Aldo getting knocked out at UFC 194 in 2015 by 1-punch KO in 13 seconds to Conor. Then Conor doesn't appear in that division again. So Aldo gets the opportunity to fight Frankie for the vacant title or the interim title or whatever it was. And then he gets eventually upgraded to the full title ship. I think in that case, we were more okay with it, however, or at least I was. I'm only speaking from experience here because I felt Aldo deserved an immediate rematch from the reign he had been on and didn't get it. So in that case, it's like, okay, you didn't get what you were deserved. The guy moved up. I could see you going back in there. He fought Frankie at UFC 200 and whether he, had a spy in camp or watched a video or whatever that rumor was. I mean, he owned Frankie technically, his footwork, distance, great performance. It is what it is. We got to move pay-per-views. We have very few stars, true proven stars in the bullpen. Maybe this is more about Diego Lopez in the end. And in that regard, I think he's deserving. I think it could be his time. But a little nitpick in there. Let's talk about the rest of the card. Let's talk about what has been added. I've been waiting to find out who Michael Chandler is going to fight. I've been waiting, right? Because we knew it could have been anything from Conor to another Poirier fight to insert action perform. I mean, imagine him and Max Holloway right now for the BMF. Could have been that too. But I am very, very, very happy that UFC has chosen now to do what I thought was already time, and that's put Paddy Pimblett in a really big fight. And it doesn't have to be the really big fight that potentially cashes him out or proves him to maybe be a fraud or whatever. It could be competitive, interesting matchup like this, the matchmaking of this. Michael Chandler, old, all action, still got it, can win a fight at any time, can lose a fight at any time. 38 years old, here for a short time, not a long time. Lost 4 of his last 5, but is the fight of the night, performance of the night every single time. This outside of the matchup I truly wanted, but again, it might be just me, right? I'm always trying to take a temperature. What do you got, Enigma Crunch? Some real Volk haters in there. I don't know if it's a Volk hating or we're unhappy with the liberal nature of the chess pieces here and the way it's happening, but whatever, right? Back to this. I wanted Conor Paddy. I think that's a stadium main event pay-per-view fight that passes a torch, brings together UK, Ireland, and would be wild. But we've got issues getting Conor in the cage or, doing anything but living 1985 Vince Neil's life at the moment. So Chandler Patty to me is perfection because we really don't actually know if Patty's really this good, if he's really going to, if he gets to the top of the line, if he will have deserved it. Because when you are a celebrity, you're going to get a certain level of protected or controlled matchmaking. And I kind of predicted this fight a while ago after Patty's last performance and basically said there is a road, given all of the aging names at 155, aging, all action, fun names, that if you strategically match Patty through these, he might be able to jump to the front of this line in 1 to 2 fights. And I don't think that's wrong. He's got an unbeaten record, even though it's been against a meandering level of competition, and sometimes he wins but looks bad, right? Like there's been a whatever here. But if Patty goes out there and beats Chandler, even with the losses, even with whatever, even with the age, he might just catapult to the front. He might, to being on the verge of fighting somebody to fight for a chance at the world title. I also think it's going to be exciting as hell. There's a huge opportunity here for a guy that the fans love in Michael Chandler, not just because he's all action, blood and guts, but he kind of fits this ideal of the average UFC fan. You know what I mean? Like he kind of, with the right-wing politics, with the everything. So imagine if he sunned Patty, and it'd be madness on the internet. It'd be madness everywhere. It'd be wild to see. Fun fight. Also kind of matters seriously in the rankings. All in on it. Thank you. Jeff Neal, Carlos Pratish. I don't hate this. Okay. Yes. Nikita Krylov, Dominic Reyes. Okay. Yan Xiaonan, Jandiroba, #1 contender fight. Darren Elkins, Juicy J. Yes. Jim Miller, Chase Hooper. I know these are accompanying matchups, right? Dan Ige, Sean Woodson. Yes. And then the other edition. And then the one that I think is just the icing on top, the spice that's been injected in, right? The steroid sandwich complete with the needle inside the sloppy meat inside is definitely the clutch signing of Patricio Pitbull and the day one matchmaking of which psychopath can we put him in there with? Which all action guy can we just make amazing blood and guts action? I know Yair Rodriguez. Guys, this is like the third or fourth, biggest fight on this card. And this is the one. This is the one. I'm so happy that Patricio Pitbull is out of PFL jail, that he is getting this opportunity. Yes, it comes late in his career, but if he comes in with that exact same mindset of Chandler, he's going to be in some really fun fights over multiple divisions. Don't forget that win or lose for either Chandler and Pitbull, the next fight against each other in a rematch of that quick first round knockout by Pitbull when he moved up to lightweight in Bellator is just perfect matchmaking anyway. So it almost doesn't even matter if these two lose or one of them wins and loses. So I am so in on this Yair fight. And I thought, considering now they've done recent things with UFC matchmaking that was more situational dependent, like bringing in Kai Asakara and putting him right into a title fight. It was just sort of like the division needed a name at the moment. There was a little bit of juice there. Let's see if we can reignite the Japan market. Like there's reasons why that happened. I thought you could have done that if you needed to with Pitbull. So what I'm really saying here, and maybe you'll disagree with me, maybe you don't have the same love that I had for the best moments of Bellator history. I've always had like this intimate care and relationship with Bellator. Not that I wasn't criticizing them when needed, but like early on in my ESPN editing days, like 2012, I was like low man on the totem pole. So I'd be tasked with like, you must watch the Bellator main event and, either recap it or post the results or whatever. So for me, if they brought in Pitbull and just said, we're going to, whatever we have with him, we're going to use it to the best. And they did instead Pitbull against Diego Lopez for the title. I know that's not a main event, but that would have been a hell of a or third fight on a big card. I would have been more than happy to do that. There are so many matchups across multiple divisions that they can and hopefully will do with Pitbull. I wonder if he can keep himself viable. You're going to need to win at least once or twice, as Chandler has proven. But damn, if the biggest winner out of this Topuria news, well, the potential biggest winner, in my opinion, is that we're a lot closer to Ilya versus Islam happening for #1 and 2 pound for pound. Love it. But the other one is that UFC 314 in Miami, pretty much banger heavy here. Banger? I mean, I just met her, right? I got hopes, I got dreams, I got a will, but but there we go. Oh, okay. Sometimes I can, yeah, there you go. All right. What else we got attached to this news? Right? Chin, what else you got for me? Let's go on over to UFC 313. We didn't see any changes on that. 315. That's what we got going on. We also have a new UFC London event because Jack Della Maddalena was pulled from the Leon Edwards fight. Sean Brady will fill in. Still love that matchup. Still really matters for both in the top upper class of this division. Right now, welterweight, for as much as it's lacking superstar pound for pound, or I'm sorry, pay-per-view brands at the top, damn, does this division have depth 1 through 15. So you really can't miss at the moment. But here's the big news. UFC 315 is Montreal, May 10th. And originally there was some rough rumors going around that it could be like Bilal in the main event and Juliana Pena in the co-main. They didn't go that direction, but here's what we got. Shavkat Rakhmonov injured, not fully ready. Guess what? They didn't call Kamaru, so I'm not upset here because they're leaving him in number 1 ranking or 2 or wherever he still is at welterweight, even though he doesn't even fight there anymore for the most part, okay? Yeah, Kamaru currently 3. So Leon's the number 1 contender. They always do that if you lose your title. They leave you at 1. Shavkat 2, he's hurt. Leon needs a comeback win, so he's going to have that tough fight against Sean Brady in London. But they skip over number 3, Usman, thank you, and they go to number 4, Jack Della Maddalena. Jack Della's coming off a year off and a fight in which he didn't look great against Gilbert Burns, particularly grappling, until he needed to at the end and landed that big, dangerous, violent knee. I've always been a JDM, Mr. Bobolina, Mr. Bob Dobolina fan from the beginning, not against him getting the shot. What is interesting to me is how many people are going, I think Bilal wins that, which is actually kind of cool to see because, I've had problems remembering the name. I didn't believe in Bilal, and then he won the title, broke Luke Thomas's 35 and under rule. And it feels like all we've done since then is just trying to throw him back in there as fast as possible so he can transitional champion Iron Sheik to Hulk Hogan in 1984, just kind of give the belt to the next killer in line. And we thought that was Shavkat. But this is interesting because now you can favor him here betting wise. And it's a really interesting fight. I mean, the most interesting thing about the top end of this division is we all think Shavkat's the best fighter in it, but now we don't really know after what happened to Ian Gary. And I wonder if there were conversations about Ian Gary getting this title shot right here, that would have started more conversations similar to the one of me talking about Topuria having lost 3 of his last 4 and coming off 2 straight knockout defeats and then getting the title shot. But given that Ian Gary's close loss was like as big of a moral win as we've seen in a while, not one of those Edgar Berlanga moral wins where you go on a media tour because you lost all 12 rounds to Canelo, more one of those like everybody thought I wasn't ready and wasn't the real deal. And I just showed you. Yeah, I lost, but I showed you. They didn't go that way. Jack Della Maddalena, interesting fight against Gilbert. I don't hate this at all. I want to see it. I'm not Gilbert, Bilal. And I want to see Bilal be fully healthy and get the chance to earn more respect because all he does is win, stay in shape, stay ready, no matter what. I didn't love that Gilbert Burns fight for either of them, but Bilal was the one who got his hand raised. So this is interesting. The co-main event now. We wondered after what Zhang Wali, after I basically counted her out, after I said Ryan Garcia would tune her up with a guitar, or hey, Devin Haney, more or less, to play on the great Luke joke from last April. Tatiana Suarez, the dominance of Zhang was so quick, so not quick, it took a while, but it was so demonstrative, and then the teases of moving up that, yes, I argued you could have done that next, and they could have made it a really big deal. They probably still will at the end of this calendar year. The idea of Zhang moving up, and if it's still Shevchenko, it's a really, really big fight. Not just 1 versus 2 pound for pound on the female side, but you can inject storylines, whether it's true or not, that the winner is the greatest of all time. You can do stuff like that promotionally. They're not doing it yet, but this is good news for meritocracy if you care, and it's certainly good news for the rankings for Manon Farrell, who is not getting any younger, as I always like to say, 35 years old, but I think is doing the right thing. She beat Erin Blanchfield 11 months ago. She didn't, she stayed out. She waited. She got ready. She had to wait through the sphere and the trilogy like everybody else. And now she's going to get her opportunity at 12-1, unbeaten in the UFC. I love this fight. I do. And there's very little female fights left. It's seemingly in this, this 2-year era here, this stretch that we can say that. I said that about Weili and Suarez. I thought it was going to be a different type of fight. I think it still produced things we needed to see and talk about. But this fight's really interesting to me. Then on 315 in Montreal, excuse me. And it's great to see, by the way, the UFC back in Canada, back in Montreal, which has been such an early, plant that flag. Let's do big events here. I mean, I've covered boxing in Montreal. The first big fight I ever went to, when I mean like big fight and I covered it and I was ringside, was Jean-Pascal Bernard Hopkins 2, when B-Hop set the record at 46 by becoming the oldest champion. And that, well, arguably did, because there's still, to this day, it's unsure whether Archie Moore was 46 or 48 when he won his last title. There's a lot of stuff in boxing. And I remember that was 2011, just walking around the streets and just seeing MMA and boxing everywhere, shops, posters in restaurants, like everywhere. And just, I love that. I love that they're back, and I'm happy that they didn't, mail in this card. That they, we still are probably going to see more fights announced. But if those are our 2 title fights, you're not going to sell millions of pay-per-view buys, but you're appealing to the hardcores there. Gilbert Burns, Michael Morales, banger. We need it. Yes, let's go. We need it for the division to see if Morales is truly coming on and whether Gilbert is going. And how about this women's flyweight matchup that has me fired up? Alexa Grasso coming off of that really step down performance against Shevchenko in the trilogy, especially on the ground, is going to be a betting underdog against a streaking Natalia Silva at 28 years old, who is unbeaten in the UFC, hasn't lost since that Marina Rodriguez decision all the way back in 2017 in Brazil on the regional level. I do still have questions if Silva has enough offensive firepower to truly beat the elites here. This is a great first opportunity to find out, just as well to find out if Alexa Grasso still has it. So love that. Love it. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. I think, the biggest news there is what's going on with Topuria, but I love the Pitbull signing. I love it. It to get somebody with that reputation, that potential for violence and entertainment, and just drop it on top. It's like the RDR signing. It was like, wait, he's available? Like, okay, let's get him. Let's bring him in here. 2 months later, he's got 2 wins, and there you go. So what are we saying here, Rico? Who cares about Weili and Shevchenko? Oh, you're talking. See, sometimes look, there's conversations between proprietors here in this bar. Not everybody's listening to the bartender, and that's fine. Okay, you know what I mean? As long as you pay your cover charge, I think you're good. You know what I mean? Just show up at the end of the day. Just show up. All right. That's topic number 1. Did I miss any of the announcements in there? I don't know. I'm trying to moderate this chat and talk in circles at the same time. Topic number 2. Oh, I keep screwing up Jardine. You're right. Michael, the Dean of Mean Jardine. I keep doing this. When I reference the idea of somebody becoming a 2-time champion in their own division, I keep saying 2-division champion. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll take the L. They're dead wrong on a Thursday. There you go. Okay. Rainier de Reindeer, Ritter de Ritter. Thank you. Good stuff right there. Topic number 2. We all know the fight card of the last crescendo is going on this Saturday. And as Rafe Bugs and I peeled away the politics and the BS and just focused on why we're here, because we're injected with the disease that loves these fights. Big ups to Turkey for these 7 main card fights on Saturday, even though it's going to last 12 to 13 hours and somebody's going to get elected to the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. This is insane. This is insane. And even with Floyd Kid Schofield, the 22-year-old lightweight, I want to say pulling out, but I think technically it's declared that the British Board of Boxing Control has felt he was medically unfit. Now, look, there's a lot that goes with this. I don't know the truth. And what's not helping Floyd Schofield Jr. is that his dad and trainer and manager, Floyd Sr., there is just firing stuff off on the internet in very aggressive fatherly ways, right? Like Angel Garcia, Bill Haney, and Teo Sr. level ways combined. But there's accusations that it was Shakur's snack masseuse, snack meaning Victor Conte's supplement supplement group, that put the cream on Schofield and got him sick. Then there was the idea that maybe his weight cut was going too bad. Either way, his dad posted a picture of him in the hospital, and that seemed to be some level of validation, or we think that he didn't just get nervous. Despite there's reports I've heard for a while, we know he's getting a career high payday. This is a big step forward in competition, a big leap. They want the smoke, and Turkey, if you're willing, gives you an opportunity. I had heard $1 million. Now I'm hearing like $4 million. So, when you originally heard Mr. Schofield basically say, yeah, I know people don't think we can win this fight, but to be fair, we couldn't turn down the price. I mean, that's a big part of this. I don't really know ultimately what happened. I'd like to believe, now that we've got the British Boxing Board of Control involved, that it was a medical issue, that hospital picture is real. But I will just put a butt out there. Schofield's own promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, once was supposed to ill-advisedly box Vitor Belfort in a Triller triangle ring the same night as a Metallica concert. And, he mysteriously pulled out days before and posted a video of himself in the hospital. Even with this change to the schedule and Stevenson getting a last-minute opponent, and let me give this guy some respect. I don't know a lot about him, this UK bloke. None of us do, outside of the fact that he's the guy who upset the English bloke that Turkey had loved and had been featuring, who was named Mark Chamberlain, I believe. So the new fight for Stevenson's WBC World Lightweight title is 15-0 Josh Padley, an electrician by trade. In fact, Monday and Tuesday of this week, he was on the job, on the site. You know what I mean? Getting dirty. 29 years old, from the UK. I mentioned the unbeaten record, and he took on 16-0 Mark Chamberlain last September in Wembley Stadium on that Joshua Dubois card and scored an upset win. On 3 days' notice, who are you going to get, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, who is it going to be? It's not going to be a huge name. Opportunity for this guy. He was in shape, was looking for big opportunities, but it's now a showcase fight. Does this, because to be fair, not that every fight needs to be ranked or every fighter or every victory. I know we do this a lot, usually just for podcasts, headlines or segment titles. You'll be like, oh my God, Weili's win was so great. Is she now the best strawweight ever? Okay, we do that a lot. But this was legitimately on paper the best card of all time. But so was, to be fair, the August 3rd Crawford Madrimov one last time. And then we lost Tim Tszyu versus Virgil Ortiz. And it just felt like it had come back down, not to normal, but it had come back down a little bit. Somebody just tweeted me that John Jones vacated this title. Is this true? Okay, that's not true, right? Okay. The fake Helwani tweet I just fell for. I don't know what's going to happen with John. I don't know. We'll see. That's a good conversation for today to have. I don't think losing Floyd Schofield in this fight, since it was the only fight of the 7 that was, it was fake news, guys. I saw a fake Helwani account. People were tweeting at me. I think. Hold on. Let me look at my Slack here. Things happen in the. Oh no, this is just about the FBI. That's not related. Okay, there you go. Back to what I'm saying. It doesn't really change anything, because it was expected that Shakur Stevenson was going to mop up on Schofield. Many people were not excited about this bout. I was. One, because I love Shakur Stevenson and was intrigued by the huevos of the Schofield family. And this was interesting because I do think Schofield's legit. I just feel like, or could be legit, right? But like, it's too early. It is too early. So I had more of almost a morbid fascination in this fight, to be fair. And sometimes that happens in boxing. Sometimes because that's the only fascination available, or sometimes just because it's a morbid reality following this sport. It really is, to be fair. This card's still it's just insane. I mean, we should be spending this entire week rewatching the first Beterbiev Bivol fight, talking about the tiny things I can make, but we're not, because there's so many damn things to talk about. And when they do big Saudi close-ups now, especially with the Ring magazine fully in gear, they fly everybody. I mean, that's the thing I have enjoyed the most about the Turkey experience, flying in all the legends all the time, and at least from a distance on the ground, Even though we complain that when you do the big fights in Saudi, it's not talked about as much around here on US soil and the news cycles and all that. And I think that is true. To make these events feel big, Turkey does know what he's doing. Now, do all those fighters like being constantly around each other in Turkey's private room and the camera's panning them and everybody looks like they're in a hostage video? You got to ask them. But damn, this card's great. I mean, Dubois in the co-main, the winner fights Usyk. I mean, there's a lot going on. And it has been confirmed that Turkey will be flying in David Benavidez. So obviously, if Beterbiev wins, if he doesn't move up to cruiser, that is a freaking huge matchup. Back to what I'm trying to say here. All right, 9:15 a.m. What do you got for me? Thank you for your support of this chat. Such a great card, and I'm wondering that because I'm feeling the buzz, but I'm unboxing Twitter, 24/7. I'm writing previews for CBS Sports. I'm doing podcasts talking about this and super excited. Is there a bigger buzz? I don't know. I hope so. But what I wanted to mention was I feel bad for Shakur Stevenson. It's not his fault. I know he's not beloved by everybody. I know some people are like, well, this is karma for some of this other stuff, like when he gets booed out of his own home arena in a fight that was, he thought Top Rank was kind of setting him up to look bad and not be entertaining, and he looked bad and was not entertaining, and the home crowd left early, and people booed him like crazy in that Edwin De Los Santos win, even though he limited that guy to a compy box low and punches. But then he left Top Rank and signed with Matchroom, and it was okay. Probably not going to fight Tank anytime soon, but maybe now he'll get paid big time what he feels he deserves, and maybe now we'll see him on a path. And originally it was okay, he's going to fight William Zepeda right away, and we're like, and then he's going to do something else, and then they're going to try to make a Tank fight. And it seemed like we had this great path for Shakur to try to get some of these boulders off of his shoulders here. You know what I'm saying? Whether they're self-induced or not. But Zepeda got hurt, wasn't ready. We're going to have a different opponent for this matchup, and it didn't come together. Then it was going to be Schofield, and it was, okay, not ideal, but interesting, just the same. Let's give this pound-for-pounder and Shakur a chance to come out and reestablish his name on this stage with Eddie Hearn behind him, Turkey's bankroll, all that. And now he gets a showcase fight with nothing at stake or anything. It's kind of tough because I did argue when he signed with Eddie and Turkey, essentially, that what he needed most was a great performance in a fight people thought he could lose in. And that's Gervonta Davis, because that's also, in my opinion, what Gervonta Davis needs most. He needs to match himself in a fight where people question whether he's going to win. He needs another Ryan Garcia type fight, even though most people thought he was going to win. Still, obviously, that fight was huge commercially. They still need each other. Now, it still could happen. Boxing right now is just an open marketplace. Anything can happen. But I do question and wonder, and I'm not going to criticize for Shakur for seeing all of his options as a free agent and taking the best one for him, and probably a huge bag with Eddie here in Turkey. But I argue that he probably, if what I felt he truly needed, if he agreed, which is a win like that, even if you're the B-side, even if you're taking a smaller check, just to basically say, my skills are as great as people say they are. The haters that booed me in these fights, we're moving away from that. This is a new chapter now in my career. If he would have signed with PBC, he would have gotten that already. So now he's fighting some guy. And like I said, hopefully they can make it. Hopefully they can still make it, whether it's with Turkey or not. But that's what Shakur really needs. That's what his reputation needs, because he's at the back end of the top 10 pound for pound with skills, in my opinion, that could be number one. But he lingered of late in his last few years with Top Rank because, people aren't going to throw themselves at him to fight him because you're probably going to lose. So I hope this relationship gets him really tough matchups. I hope he can come back right away and get Zepeda and escalate that into some form of a title unification in this division, whether it was Loma, which would have happened if he stayed with Top Rank. So that was a decision as well. Or whether it's Tank. Now, it doesn't seem like Tank is working with Turkey or is willing to, but I said the same thing about Canelo. So we will see. The other thing I want to bring up related to Shakur was, what's crazy is and I'm guilty of it because I was so wowed. When Keyshawn Davis beat Dennis Berinchik last Friday, we had him on MK on Monday. Whether we were going to have him on or not, I was going to say everything I said. There's those moments when you think somebody could be the one or a one, and they show up and I'll always go back to the Pacquiao Cotto comment from Larry Merchant on the HBO pay-per-view broadcast after Pacquiao stopped him in the last round when he said, "We knew Manny Pacquiao was great. He's better than we thought." Like, that's the ultimate compliment in this game. It felt a softer version of something like that with the ease Davis had. And I know a lot of people are going, yeah, BC, but what about Berinchik showing up like a corpse? Yeah, I didn't like his game plan. I didn't like his performance. I don't think that he's on the take or anything, though. He went in there, a guy that just swallowed him up. So, right, the immediate talk after that was like, oh, man, look at the star power in this division of the champions, even though one of them is Tank and we don't know if those fights are accessible. One of them is Loma, and we don't know if he's ever going to fight again. And the other one for Keyshawn is Shakur. And they had come out and said, no, we hang around in the same group, right? The extended Bomac group there with Terrence Crawford, the North Omaha boys, and we're friends and we've helped each other and we're not going to do it. It's Kane and DC. It's Aljo and Marab. And we all accepted that. And we don't accept that easy in boxing. Probably because it doesn't have the same super team culture as MMA, where if you're a part of an elite team, and to be great in a lot of cases, you have to be, it's inevitable that you're going to run into other guys in and around your weight class to spar with and get better with. Boxing, there are times when a celebrity trainer will have multiple big names and they'll be kind of around the same weight class, like when Freddie Roach had both Amir Khan and Manny Pacquiao, and all we got instead was to hear the legendary stories of those who had been in wild card when they sparred and what that looked like, obviously, before Khan fell apart. But then Andre Ward records that sit down for all the smoke fight with Shakur, which came right before Floyd Schofield pulled out of the fight. And in fact, it produced a very interesting soundbite this week where hours before Floyd pulled out of the fight, Shakur's on camera saying, I think he's going to pull out. And I don't want to waste all that effort I put in to get ready for this. The other topic, the other bottle, the one that I mixed, right? Panama. Andre's like, I know you won't fight Keyshawn and you guys are boys and all that, but I like the way Andre kind of phrased it and said it. And I think Andre, by the way, Ward is people considered him dry when he was a fighter because everything he said was very controlled and thoughtful and all that. I like his interview style. I like the way he asks certain questions because he will ask tough questions. And he was basically like, okay, if you guys are boys, isn't the ultimate play getting in the ring against each other on a huge pay-per-view where you're both going to make the money and one of you is going to take a step forward and build on their own greatness? Wouldn't you? It was almost like his way of saying, like, you're both competitors, you're both killers. Wouldn't you rather go through a friend in that case so you can help both of each other out? Not help each other out in like the Mike Tyson versus Clifford Etienne way, where it's like you broke your back spinal, your opponent can't even stand. Like, that just, come on, that was a debacle. But he said, if it was big enough, would you fight? And Shakur's like, yeah, if the bag's big enough, I would do it. So everybody's tweeting that and retweeting that. And we're all like, I'm sending it to Luke Thomas and Mikey and everybody. And I'm, Rafe, and I'm just like, So, so you're saying there's a chance. It's kind of like, in my opinion, when we all thought about 4 years ago that everyone trained by in Dallas with Derek. Errol Spence, Jermel Charlo, Derek James, the world-class trainer. It was like, would these guys fight each other? Or when the Charlo brothers were with Ronnie Shields and Laura was there at his peak, it's like, well, they sparred so many times. Would they fight each other? And I always liked that. Errol Spence was always like, I love those guys. I'll fight all of them right now for the money. Like, let's do it. Let's be great. So Shakur does that. We're quote tweeting it. We're getting fired up. And then Keyshawn's like, I forgot what he said. Send the contract or whatever. Send the offer. Let's go. Okay. Let's go. All right. Let's match greatness against one another. The only way you can have great eras like the Four Kings era is if Leonard and Hearns are willing to get into the ring when both are at their early absolute 23-year-old, 24-year-old peaks. You know what I mean? Let's go. And I know Tank is saying this week, and Tank's fighting next week, but Tank's doing a lot of non-traditional media this week, a lot of influencer boxing influencer podcasts, a lot of stuff, a lot of crossover stuff. And he's keeping up the idea that he is going to retire sooner than later, but he's now saying, I think I might have 3 fights left. And one of those he said was, I'd be willing to fight Haney if he looks good against Garcia, which I certainly don't hate. If Haney can come back, beat Ramirez, go in there against Ryan Garcia and look good. But for Tank's last 3, one of them has to be Shakur. Or one of them has to be Keyshawn if Keyshawn goes through Shakur. Or maybe we don't need Shakur. Maybe you get Shakur and Davis. But could you imagine if Keyshawn Davis keeps adding names this quickly? A Davis versus Davis pay-per-view, Keyshawn and Tank. We're building things here. We are. And the Turkey situation is like, sometimes we really need your wallet, Turkey, to make some of these, and he's been doing that. So I'm rambling. That's me on the box. Final topic. I'm gonna give you the floor. All right. Use it wisely. Reggie J. I don't assume, by the way, that anything I talk about on here that everyone cares about, that anyone has a freaking care in hell that I can't stop listening to the James Gang with Joe Walsh right now. I mean, damn, right? Like, oh, so good. Thirds is so good. Enoch Marchand sent me that Thirds record, and now I'm on everything that they did. I don't expect you to care about the life of a Walsh middle-aged man and his cat, but the love and care you seem to show toward one Reginald Jackson Campbell warms my heart. And yes, it's been touch and go for Reggie J. He's not going to pass, which is good. Things are looking up, but he had some really rough days mixed in with some productive days where he's getting closer to kicking this respiratory pneumonia type illness that would allow him to finally get in surgery and get his teeth removed and get out of being in pain at all times. Took him to the docs yesterday. Sunday was an awful day. Tuesday was an awful day. Anyone that has sick animals, young or old, knows sometimes they can waver so aggressively and they'll be playing like crazy and all that. But he got a good bill of health, enough yesterday, despite the still ongoing challenges of his respiratory illness, to schedule his dental surgery a week from yesterday. So next Wednesday, provided that he passes the chest x-ray exam that would be necessary to undergo surgery. If he does, if we continue to give him the antibiotics and all the breathing treatments, and basically he's a patient, 24 hours a day for us, then he should be able to get that surgery done and get on the road to being that guy again, being Mr. October, right? I got a little scared Sunday morning. All right. In fact, I went out and was chopping up ice aggressively to try to get him in the car to the ER. But by the time I was done chopping that ice, he had kind of bounced back. It happens. He's only like 6 and he's the best athlete in the world. And he doesn't give a damn about what anybody thinks. And that drives him. You know what I mean? He's going to fight through this. But to see my guy, he's also the cleanest cat of all time. Like, he might have OCD obsession. So to see him unclean and, medicine staining his white fur and his tongue is just hanging out low because his mouth is all numb and his teeth are rotting. And they said the floppy tongue may be permanent. You got to feel for the guy. All right. But we're going to stay strong over here with Team Reg. And before you know it, he's going to be back on this shoulder trying to peel down the ceiling tiles, because that's what that guy does. All right. Thank you. Thank you for caring. Thank you. Quick aside from Brody Moret as we begin to transition now. Maybe it's not a quick aside into your questions. The floor's open. Okay. My cat's fighting. I hope you're fighting the good fight. The floor's open. Let's hear from you, the people. All right. Where's my Jack Swagger shirt? Damn right. You believe. All right. Believe it. Brody Moret. Brody M. All right. Bruiser Brody, right? About to get shivved in Puerto Rico, fella. BC, did Keyshawn Davis really knock out Teo's daddy? So this is an interesting look. There's so much BS coming out of boxing Twitter on the regular, whether it's, unsubstantiated reports of things or elite journalists taking people's words for it and reporting things, or I don't know, rampant racism, including from Teofimo, who's like literally race baiting every top African-American fighter in a hope of, I guess, luring them into some big one. Comes this reveal from people, and I think Terrence Crawford even chimed in. A few other people chimed in that knew of the story in boxing or saw it, that possibly Keyshawn Davis had an altercation with Teofimo's dad, Teofimo Sr., who they call Junior as a nickname. I don't understand it either. But, and that he might have punched him and that there was no comeback. I don't know, but it's spicy. It's interesting. Keyshawn has said, after initially saying, after the box of racism hit his door and Teo put out that video saying, I'm not going to help you get paid, is now like, look, I'll fight you. All right. I'll fight you. Let's just, and it is a top ranked in-house, basically a pay-per-view. I mean, that's a big ass fight if they wanted to do something like that. If Teo was going to stay at 140 and Keyshawn would move up, and Keyshawn's already said, not going to be at 35 long. I don't know if this happened, but this is a way juicier and more interesting build to the story than the N-word in a box full of racism and this continued race baiting. So if we have to go this route to getting it, then part of me is almost like, man, I hope that story is true. I don't want dads getting knocked out, but you get my point. Okay. I like, we expect some slop in this game we live on slop in this game. And people be sure all about pro wrestling. No, I'm just about boxing. Okay. And boxing sometimes is pro wrestling. It's just the life. It's just the center of absurdity. And that's why we're watching. All right. I'm trying to stay up with your comments and questions here. The floor is open. Super chat's open. All right. Your fly's open. Yeah. Put it away. Thank you. Okay. All right. Teal Deneen, poor BC talking boxing, we talking flat earth and making name puns. I mean, that's better than the misogyny and racism that I hear regularly is promoted in the MK YouTube chat. That's a running joke, though. I'm not doing a constant political bit here. I don't like racism in combat sports. All right, it's kind of rubbing me the wrong way, but I don't think everything is racist. There we go. Let's hit it. Let's hear from some of these people. Green Go OG22 in the his house. Thank you for representing. Appreciate that. Tap that like button, donks. Thanks for all you do, BC. Hope Reggie is doing better. Thank you, brother. Okay, one day at a time in this household, right? I mean, it's not just Reggie. My one kid had wisdom teeth pulled yesterday in a hospital procedure. The other one's sick. He's got a big race. My kid qualified for state open and indoor track. I'm so proud of him. All right. I'm so proud. Let's go. Okay. A lot of reasons to be excited in life. Let's go. Thank you for your support. Dick's Insider, if you want to lure BC out to your hometown, promise him a charcuterie board. I'd probably come for less, to be fair. Probably would. Thank you. Where's my shoes? Sliding in with some support here. Sending a few quid for Reggie's Beth Bills. Thank you. Obviously, for people that know, I mean, Luke talked about the amount he had to do to try to keep Barbas going. We do that as pet parents. It's not easy. I mean, I'm in a better spot to be able to do that now. I did that 12 years ago when we had no money to put together. We all would, right? They're not animals, they're family members. Let's be fair. Let's be realistic with this, okay? Yeah. Al Drum, support for the Reg. We appreciate it. He's a fighter. He's fighting. All right. I think I'm getting involved in some weird conversations. Let's get back to these weird conversations. Here's Guillermo sliding back in. Yeah, brother. Yeah, man. BC, stop calling me Riggin now. Call me Memochenko or Memo from Bompton. So Guillermo in this chat is Memo from Bompton. On a live chat, Luquito scoffed at the Pico Topuria matchup. BC dead wrong him. So yes, lost in this news cycle of Dana White droppings overnight, Guillermo, or should I say Memochenko? Yeah, it's so weird, but let me write that down. I got to remember that. I mean, it's weird. It is weird, right? All right. Here we go. Aaron Pico is trying to get out of PFL jail. And, Don Davis tweeting that they're allowing, as a restricted free agent, Pico can talk to UFC, but like with Kayla Harrison the first time around when she was a free agent, they can match it. Okay. I feel for all these PFL Bellator guys. I mean, it's just getting the fact that PFL And this isn't even your question. I get it. Okay. I get look memo from Bompton. I get it. Okay. It's not even your question, but the idea that PFL could come back in this new year, knowing of the criticism against them, knowing of everybody saying like, drop the charade, stop. You're adding on. You're putting. It's like on a Monopoly board. You get those two light blue properties, Connecticut Avenue. Yet you're pumping it full of hotels. It's like you're never going to make the money back. Nobody cares. Okay, you don't need 18 divisions and 4 titles. Nobody cares. Give us your best fights. So then they do that. Maybe accidentally with Hughes versus Usman, Nurmagomedov, but they don't put a PFL title at stake. Could have done that. And they're like, oh, yeah, our next show is in 2 months. And then you find out their next actual show that's not a tournament show that they could put a title like Usman Nurmagomedov's, don't call it Bellator. What title is it again on the line? Is not until June. They're going to go 7 months without a title fight. Like these are... And even though they have made some positive changes for the fans, and to get the journalists like us off their back, and about time we got elbows, right? Good stuff. And okay, it's not regular season playoffs anymore, but you're still built around tournaments that almost literally don't matter. Like, okay, 500K is not nothing. And probably, I think the most recently they said the winner of these tournaments would be the number 1 contender. Okay. But like what we just want to actually see is you populate a normal amount of divisions that would matter if you're trying to be the number 2 or 1B to UFC. Put your best fighters on the roster at the top of those divisions and build your reputation through this idea that no one else could be UFC or TKO group. But you know what we are? We're a little bit different. But we still got world-class fighters that might be able to go across the street to the UFC and win a title tomorrow. We still got Patchy Mix and Aaron Pico and Patricio Pitbull and blah, blah, blah. But no, because those guys came in on Bellator contracts that were larger than PFL wants to pay. They bought them, announced it big, like there was some big merger, and they said, we're not trying to compete for number 2. We're going at, all that stuff. And then all these Bellator names, which are arguably the highest critical value names that you hold outside of the 2 stars that you successfully have taken to this level, Paul Hughes and Dakota Ditcheva. Hughes built in Europe, but when he came here, these guys are all in jail and not getting fights and only fighting on Bellator versus PFL because Saudi Arabia is paying extra. Like it's transparent here. So like, yeah, they effed up with Pico, with all these guys. And I don't want to hear, oh, they're getting paid so much. Well, you bought Bellator. You made that decision. Okay. Then you made the decision to keep them out in Bellator Siberia. We didn't even know what channel these Bellator cards would be on. We couldn't even get a replay on the Max app for a while if you didn't watch it live. Like just so when I see this Pico thing, I'm like, yes, Aaron Pico, go to where you belong. Maximize your opportunities now. Because it doesn't seem like they got a clue over there. It's not getting better. And like, instead of building around these tournaments as like, we're different and here's why, here's these tournaments that look like Bellator tournaments. How about you instead take the assets that you do have that are great, that we must see more of? Ditcheva, Hughes, Usman Nurmagomedov, Patchy Mix, Aaron Pico, and make those the poster, make those the face of it. Say, look at this young core. Look at this young core of breakout star athletes. But yet, Luke Thomas sent me some advertisement of the upcoming dates that PFL put out. And in the poster was Phil Davis and Tyler Santos. Okay. And it's like, I don't hate all of these tournament rosters that have been pumped out there. Don't hate them. But like, again, it's sort of like, okay, we got 3 Bellator cast-offs here. It's not even like the best Bellator fighters you have. And a couple guys that we've seen in the last 5 tournaments here in PFL. Yeah, let's fight for not even a title anymore. Like, stop making that the centerpiece of what you do. Nobody cares at all. We do care about a certain amount of your fighters. So make them your PFL champion. And then everyone else you have fights each other to build rankings. And that's how we do it. It's simple. You've already proven that the other side doesn't work. Frustrating. I hope, I know there's people inside of there that have great ideas. I know for a fact. Okay. I also know that like Don's become the problem, and Peter Murray, and this thinking of like, we're smarter than everybody. We don't need to market to fans, right? We only need to market to our next investor. You don't have fans. This is why. This is why I want them to win. I want alternatives to matter. Back to your actual question, Guillermo. Like if that's even your real name, right? What are we calling you these days? Memochenko. Yes, yes, yes. Pico Topuria is interesting. Is real interesting. You good? I'm not against it. If Topuria was still the champion and they wanted to bring Pico in and be like, we just made a major signing, PFL doesn't have a clue what they're doing, and we just made a major signing, and here, day one, let's see how good he is. That's kind of, in some ways, the UFC way. I wouldn't have hated it under that regard, but Topuria's not the champion anymore, so it isn't a fight that makes a ton of sense right now. Signing Pico, though, would make a ton of sense. If they can get him, keep him happy, get him in the Performance Institute, we're going to really find out if this kid can put it all together, finally. Either way, he's going to make really fun fights. To see PFL not even know what it has is just insane to me. Like, instead of using all this investor money to build out PFL MENA in Africa and this idea of the Champions League of MMA, how about use that money to actually be able to afford your fighters to fight the assets that you actually have? It's just this idea, and this is something that Darren Owen said too, in regard of GFL, when prompted by Mike Heck in that MMA fighting town hall about like people being against the team concept. It was this whole idea, well, everybody else has tried to do the UFC model. I don't know if this is necessarily the UFC model or this is just the smartest model to gain what you would need to survive, which is early attention on you and then giving people a hook to go, it's not UFC, but I do kind of like it. Whether you like it's a different presentation on the screen, the announcers are present differently, or the rule set's just a little different but cool and different enough. Like there's ways you can do that. It's not being a copycat or relying on an old thing that only a super company could perform well. And this is the basis of all fight promotion, pro wrestling, MMA, or boxing. It's wild to me. Wild. All right. Maybe I was talking to myself. Maybe. Devin, tuck that thing. How's your hang down? Tuck it in, Devin. Okay, please. Sir, this is an Arby's. Have you ever had interest in training BJJ or MMA? Mild interest. I have spoken before about how I had a nice like 6-month window where in 2004 where I had sparred boxing regularly and had kind of trained boxing, not to become an amateur just because of the love of it and to stay in shape. Amazing workout and to get the rush of, putting on the gloves and the headgear, sometimes not, ill-advised decision making probably, but and experiencing it. And that was great. And I almost escalated that a few times where I was going to get a membership at boxing gyms, but it was always like they're an hour away, or hey, that's a gym where they actually make real fighters. I'm just a, weekend warrior type thing. I never put it together. There was a small window within the last decade where I knew some dads in this town who had really, really enjoyed the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym that's nearby and the culture and all that. But every time I've heard Luke talk about the physical toll of doing this, it added to the other elements of it that didn't really interest me. You know what I mean? Like being like my head shoved into a man's armpit and crotch on the regular while my limbs get tested and separated. Like that's not super appealing to me. Maybe because I don't have an amateur wrestling background. There's certain things I now really wish I had done and thrown myself into. There wasn't an amateur wrestling culture in my town. There was a boxing youth culture. I wish I had taken that youth program, and I certainly wish I'd gotten into swimming. It just so happened that the high school I went to had like this great institution of a swim program that also had like this badass reputation of like, we'll steal your mascot, or we'll, whatever. That would have been in hindsight, good to be a part of. I don't really think so on the BJJ. And now I'm probably too old. But I mean, if there was a gym really close boxing wise and it just made sense, it's a fun stay in shape gym, but you can work out a little bit in those areas. That would be cool. I'm also 46 though, and trying to like not, some days you get out of bed and the discs in my back are in different directions, and I'm like, I don't really know what happened. Thank you. Okay. I'm trying to put these kids through college and become the best boxing broadcaster in the world. That's what I'm trying to do. And get to platinum status on Fortnite ranked 0 build. But that's my own personal thing. All right. Indeed. Lord of the Pies. I'll be honest, my entire YouTube feed is all MMA stuff, and I've never seen a Patchy Mix highlight. That's fair. I know that non-UFC MMA doesn't always extend as much as even I think, because most of my watching it has been I've needed to for work purposes. So would I have done that on my own in my free time? Probably not. So I probably wouldn't have known who Patchy Mix was either. Glad I do though. Insane how much this guy has grown and become. Great question from M200. Given that I'm in Connecticut and Glover Teixeira's Powhatan Greater MMA Empire is down there in Danbury, Greater Danbury. I think it's Bethel where the gym is. Brookfield, Bethel, one of those two towns. Or maybe it's Danbury proper, but that's the area. Chuck Mindenhall lives in that area that they are at. I've never been to the gym yet, which is really just like, it's kind of dumb given that I live so close, even just for check in and talk, right? Get some story ideas or whatever. I should have done it already. I should have commandeered cameras, whether it was MK or CBS Sports, and done that and tried to play off of not only Glover gaining the title that late in life, but the simultaneous breakout stardom of one Powhatan, even if Daniel Cormier thinks he's, out on the streets a little too much lately. I haven't, but I liked the vibe that Glover brought in our RSD. He was in our inaugural Room Service Diaries 2.0 couch session. And I don't think he got all of our jokes or really understood us or really thought we were, anything but goofballs, but he was great. And I'm sure that vibe is cool in that gym. I would like to do that. Maybe I'll go with Chuck sometime, because he's like, Chuck runs into Glover like at the restaurant, and then they go out for beers after. It's wild, that relationship. Also, shout out from Brookfield. I think he's in Danbury proper. Yeah, that whole extended area right on the New York State border. I grew up about a half hour from there. I'm more than an hour away now, though. But all right, thank you. Rolling on. Sandine, back at it. I already hit that earlier. Yeah, I like it. Thank you. My bad. Let's hit it. Dr. Sweatpants, thank you for supporting here on the chat. Saw Head Change at a Lincoln, Nebraska music fest I played at. The boys were killer. You got a growing new Nebraskan jam band scene out here. How do we get you out here? That's a great call, because shout out to Anthony Weller, guitarist and lead singer of Head Change, that fantastic jam band from Nebraska. Anthony Weller wrote my upcoming BCX theme song, by the way, and we're getting it animated, and Mikey's in the lab, right, working on it actually as we speak. So shout out to Head Change, follow him on Instagram. Big fan of Anthony and the boys there. When we think of Nebraska rock and roll, we've long said 311, which was not straight, more funk based rock and roll / rock rap mix at times. I'm glad to hear that there's a growing scene there of jam bands. I love when scenes kind of organically pop up out of nowhere. And, the grunge in Seattle, the Athens, Georgia, early alternative rock area, the psychedelic of Haight-Ashbury, all that. So, but do I have any reason to be out in Nebraska? Will I be there? Will I run into this? No, probably not. I had a shot at one of the Showbox days. Showbox was great because he'd be like, "Where's the next fight? Deadwood, South Dakota? Are you kidding? Sloan, Iowa? What? The streets of Miami, Oklahoma? Good Lord. It's great for that regard. You get a little taste of like minor league ballpark tour type of thing. Shout out to Head Change. Thank you. This is 9:15 a.m. Such a great card. And oh yeah, we hit that earlier too. Sorry, I'm one man here, trying to figure out the buttons, technologically savvy as well. Yeah, right. Beef Lamon. That's a hell of a name there. Thank you for your support. I'm starting to enjoy boxing more than MMA due to the history, the spectacle, and the higher levels of mastery in the sport. Is that a fair opinion? Right now, it is a fair opinion. It's a little heavy-handed and maybe not fully accurate, but is boxing, if there is a battle between them, and there's not, right? This isn't 2007 and Joe Rogan and Lou DiBella going head-to-head on SportsCenter, which was, memorable and epic and worth a rewatch every once in a while just to remind yourself of what, like, the climate at the time was between the two sports. Yeah, boxing's winning right now, but it's also understandable that they are, because Turkey, who is doing some really big things in MMA as well, as is the whole, Middle East area over there, is throwing everything at boxing, not just, it seems, the bulk of the entertainment budget from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but his own private equity and buying the ring and starting a ring series. And obviously, I think that's all in a lot of ways intertwined still with Riyadh season and Big Saudi, even if Turkey's paying part of the bills. But that would make a lot of sense. But pre-Turkey takeover, don't forget 2023 was also one of the 3 biggest boxing years I've had since being, like the modern version of me as a fan, along with 2007 and 2013. Fueled, yes, of course, by the hope that Showtime Sports and PBC could prevent Paramount from doing what it did. But right now, in general, there's more pageantry in boxing. And that's part of why I argue that even, like, look, nobody does an in-ring experience like the UFC. Nobody. It's awesome. It's awesome to be there. Boxing could learn a lot and probably has. And in general, especially when the matchmaking lines up, UFC still just an unbelievable start to finish product, especially live. But Dana's insistence, in my opinion, on keeping things in smaller arenas and not taking the fights when they merit it, because no one wants to see, in my opinion, a big stadium, pay-per-view fight card where the main and co-main aren't, one of the two or both aren't, like, jump off the page memorable. It does matter that's why I didn't necessarily love in boxing when, like, Spence Ugas would end up there, or, you know what I mean? Like, or Canelo, Liam Smith. It's like, okay, I want big events and big domes. I don't know if that fight mandates it. Even Manny versus Joshua Clottey that time, I'm like, Jerry's World for that, really? But when boxing pre-Turkey even puts Anthony Joshua fight in front of 90,000 in Wembley Stadium, and there's just, I mean, it's like rock concert and WrestleMania vibes put together. It's wild. Boxing's winning in that regard. Boxing is making really big fights one after another, and then rematches of these during a time when UFC should have all the control in the industry and does. Yet things like the Ngannou situation happen when they didn't have to, and now you have Jones and Aspinall under contract, and it's like, are we making this? What are we doing here? So yes, in this regard, it's just more fun. Also, the skill level at the elite level is really high. It's not that it's not in MMA. I think it's more that, like, in MMA, it's harder to master all the skills. So there can be imbalance at the top. You can have champions that are, strong in 2 areas, but not so much in 3 others, right? Maybe that's also, I just feel like we're also up against a lack of banger star power in this UFC era. And it's probably not that I think UFC would prefer not to have stars. We always say, well, the UFC doesn't, spend the money to market them as much. That's true. I don't know if it's always purposely like, we don't want anybody too big, but I mean, that's the same thing SportsCenter went through when Olbermann and Dan Patrick, and Stuart Scott became what they thought was too famous for themselves. And suddenly it became more of a factory of, we'll just, some of that's going on in the UFC too. Obviously, Dana White Contender Series, all that. Boxing's got enough issues, even within its good times right now. But what matters is the really big events. Boxing's winning that. But then the other half of it is that week-to-week consistency. In the past, it was UFC with a bullet, like, no question. I don't think it's that anymore. These cards are like they're still fun. They still scratch the degenerative itch of needing to see fights that matter on a weekend. Like it's great. The rare times I'm not working and writing and watching it anyway, to turn it on with a, in row 8 with a cold one. Yeah, it's the best, right? But the quality's just going down. It feels like these fights don't matter anymore. It's assembly line. In that regard, boxing's been hitting the right notes. There's still too many belts. There's still a lot of absolute bullshit connected to that beef Le Mans. But I think your observation is fair. Okay. Enigma Crunch, BC, what type of coffee are you drinking and how do you prepare it? Usually a Starbucks mid type of thing, or I mean, I'll go dark too, but not too much into like flavors, but probably like a kind of like a basic Starbucks in the morning. I'll put in some flavored cream, almond milk creamer though. And that's what I got. Oversized mug, one in the morning, and then try to save whatever's left in the pot for, whatever live show I got going on. So there you go. Not a snob. Don't like to drink dirt coffee for sure. But I don't know. Sometimes flavored ones slip in, and then you're like, oh, that one is a winner. That one's great. And then the next one tastes like chemicals, whatever. Yeah. Thank you, Salito. Thank you. Right back at you. Orlando Salito, the Mexican Arturo Gatti. Tell your friends, okay? There you go. Two Changs is here. Moving day for me. Nothing like watching a ramble while the movers pack. Oh, South Oregon bird. Where are you headed, brother? Or can you not say due to legal reasons? Yes. There you go. There it is. Hopefully you're upgrading over there in Vegas. Yes. Keeping the questions flowing. I will say for shit coffee, Cumberland M200 in here, Cumberland Farms coffee, not bad. It is not bad. And, and you have to understand, like, I come from a certain level of a lineage of degeneracy in coffee, meaning that, like, my parents were coffee addicts. My dad would, in the 80s and 90s, would only be seen with a hot mug everywhere. That's what it was. So he was, like, not against what you would call cardinal sins of coffee. Like, oh, there's coffee left over from yesterday. Let me stick it in the micro. I'm from that line of thinking. So my dad I used to be like, Dad, what's the best coffee in the world? Is it Dunkin'? And he'd be like, oh, no. And I'd be like, is it Starbucks? He's like, no. He's like, McDonald's, man. You know what I mean? Like, or 7-Eleven, but only the one downtown, right? Like that kind of mindset. But Cumberland Farms, it doesn't suck. I mean, barrel coffee is some of the worst moments of your life drinking that, especially black. Like, imagine like the shittiest cup of coffee at the shittiest job you had, and there's no creamer, or there's just a powdered creamer. So you're like, I'm just drinking this black. It's just the exact way I love my women. So let's go. All right. Devin Tuck. That's it. That's my guy. Oh, Zoe, hold on. I got to close the door. Zoe there, and she's a dominatrix. She's going to bite. It's going to get weird in here. Right? I do secretly wonder if Zoe's real, and Zoe and Reggie are mortal enemies. I wonder if she's realizing he's losing screen time during this illness, and yes, she's knocking on the door. This is a possibility for Zoe to make a star turn here. She's a handful though. She's kind of like a Tai Tuivasa of cats. It's a fair presentation or representation. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you. Dustin Kilborn supporting the chat. Here for Reggie. I'll stay for BC. Thank you. Don't forget about the Zoster. All right. Zoster the toaster, because she lays on you. You're going to be sweating. She's going to heat up every location. She's going to knock everything over. You ever feel like you're sharing too much of your real life with people, BC? Yeah, right now. Zoe. Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's go back to 9:15 a.m. Did Ngannou set them back at 12 million for 10,000 pay-per-view? Yeah. Now look, like that was a time where PFL really needed a signing like Ngannou, and the window was there, and it was almost like if you're going to get him, like this is really maybe your only chance to compete, along with a gimmick of, hey, when Jake Paul makes his MMA debut, it'll happen right here, even though it'll never happen. Ngannou was sort of like you had to get him right there. And then you had to put him, in my opinion, put him in there every 3 months. And it didn't matter. Like everyone was like, well, he needs opponents, he needs a JDS or a Derek Lewis to pop in. And that would have been nice for some form of credibility. But I always felt like even if you didn't have that and you didn't have the money to get that and you didn't have the access to get that because of the UFC contracts, just keeping that dude active and letting him bounce on people. And then maybe suddenly you got a Renan Ferreira that maybe makes it a closer fight than you thought, or maybe knocks him out. And then there's a rematch and Ngannou wins it back. Like there's a plan and a path there. Now, did PFL expect the turkey boxing thing to pop up and Ngannou to want to go for it? Because he had the dream in his heart. And of course wanted to make the kind of money in one night or 2 nights now that could change him and his family and his, home community back in Africa. I mean, he could do a lot and he does do a lot, but did this deal have the potential to handcuff what's going on? Yeah, of course. But it was almost as if, because the narrative was that UFC is the slimy boss that won't let you out of the contract. Zoe, what are you doing? Maybe, if you were the PFL, you had to give in on certain things that Francis really wanted to also establish that we will be a fighter friendly home. Free agents, this is the place to come. We got a board of fighters here and Francis is on the board, whatever the whole setup was. It's like Francis was fighting for the freedom to do what he wanted, which we all thought was fair because he was so hamstrung with the UFC. But he's really doing what he wants to at the expense of the PFL. And it's also hard to criticize him for it because of the money and opportunities. Like the window was there, even though it made no sense. And he still got the Tyson Fury fight, the active heavyweight lineal champion of the world. He got that fight at a time when we're waiting for Fury to fight Usyk. And it's so close in time to that fight. And it's wild. That's wild. But does it lean into effing PFL? Well, yeah. And it's almost like they haven't done much since that big splash. The big splashes I'm talking about in succession. We're signing Francis, signing Jake Paul, a little splash of signing some of those female boxers that wanted to cross over to have Shield, Savannah Marshall, and Serrano, who never ended up fighting. And then the other splash was picking up Bellator. And then it's like, okay, we're getting some Strikeforce vibes now here. We can put them together now. And they never, that was when Don said, we're going to compete. But Don had the 25-year plan trying to execute it in year one, right? When you needed a year one plan to not just survive, but to convince people that you got something here, right? Like Strikeforce made fights that you're like, Nick Diaz versus Frank Shamrock. Yeah, I got to see that. I got to see that. Like, oh shit, they're going to get in bed with Fedor and we're going to see Fedor in the States on CBS. Like, holy crap. Those are the type of things, those are the type of swings that first Elite XC and then eventually Scott Coker and Strikeforce, with the help of the Showtime deal and the extension of CBS and maybe the right young brash personalities in some cases. And it came across as a real MMA organization, like an old school fight league. PFL doesn't have that image. They have new school country club, rich kid, how smart is your cage, So when that is played out the way it has since Francis has been signed, and PFL, in my opinion, it's been an absolute debacle. Some really good single nights, but an absolute debacle. And then during that stretch, you get Francis in the cage one time, then two things are going to have to be true at the same time. One, that his contract has become an albatross to you, but two, that you effed up. It's not like you can blame the Francis contract when nothing else has been executed correctly or the best case scenario. It could get erotically gross here soon with the butt flash. We're going to try to keep it together for the people. All right. Luke Thomas sliding in. MK related. We're coming back. We're coming after you on Friday. All right. Let's go. Let's do it. Jay Allen is here, right? Jay Allen. It's my guy. Not Jay Aaron, right? Shout out to Jay Aaron, though. Zoe, say hi to the people, Zoe. Represent. Show a little bit of yourself, not the back end, but the other Your personality, something. No? All right. Thank you. What up, BC, says Jay Allen. Watched Gaddy Ward 1 last night. Hell yeah. For the 1000th time. Best night of your life, right? I mean, come on, all over again. And just had to sit back and think, damn, there's no more HBO boxing or Showbox, or by extension, Showtime Championship boxing. What is the future of real boxing hubs? Because DAZN is trash, in Jay's opinion. Now, I have, as a consumer, some opinions about DAZN as well, that like DAZN's kind of the house of boxing in a lot of ways. PBC doing their thing on Amazon Prime, ESPN still, Top Rank still representing ESPN, even though we are under the understanding that it's going to be coming to an end at the end of July, if not earlier, but an understanding that ESPN could also be part of Top Rank's future in some form. So if somebody had to be the power one, there's things I don't love about DAZN, particularly the fact that it's a niche app in the States, only really aimed at boxing fans. So it's not like on Prime, at least, you can run into it. You know, you're turning on Prime for a movie or a series like Showtime and HBO back in the day. You could run into a boxing commercial or video or fight or something in, Gloves Off series and be like, okay, I'm kind of back into this, kind of what HBO 24/7 and Showtime All Access did in that regard. So we are in an interesting transitional point, no doubt about it. It's what I talk about every week. It somehow ends up in a topic on MK almost every week. You could be done caring about it, but it matters in boxing because boxing can be so alliance heavy and segregated that who's partnering with whom certainly does matter. But your point isn't necessarily about that. It's about that feeling of having that American cable or what have you boxing home that does it right and it just feels right. I mean, it's not like DAZN sucks. I like a lot of DAZN's announcers. I like a lot of what they do, but I agree with you. That's why we are all hoping, not just the fan in me, but also obviously the budding broadcaster in me, that PBC and Prime's relationship is only going to continue to improve and we'll get more dates. That would be great for boxing. Just the same, I think where Top Rank goes is important to watch, because I do think it's ultimately better for boxing if Top Rank still has a strong, firm hold in American TV, whether that's, I know they want to split up their deal. That seems to be the rumor or the report. So whether that was, partially on ESPN, partially on Turner, the Max app. I mean, there's potentially suitors there. Prime, I don't know. Prime, I mean, that'd be awesome if they were on the same channel as PBC there. I think that would be better, although you can certainly argue the opposite, that if Top Rank went to DAZN, then you'd basically have 4 of 5 or 5 of 6, however you want to look at it, power promoters on the same platform. That wouldn't stink per se, but has DAZN ever had that same gravitas or feel that HBO or Showtime has had? Not yet. I don't think. They've come close at times. They've done super big events the right way. But it's not the same. It's not the same. It's also hard when we're comparing the two greats here, HBO and Showtime. That era when they both were on top and had deep budgets and were competing against each other. That's my era, man. That's the good stuff right there. Okay. Thank you, Jay. I mean, Gotti Ward 1, we man, do you know what I love most about that? Was that even though everyone knew, so you're out of control, that had all action fight of the year potential, and in a lot of ways, and if you read Mickey Ward's book, which I own, it's a great read. It's like, Lou DiBella wanted to do that for a while, wanted to match those two action guys together. And yes, that night people were like, yeah, this could be something special. It organically became that in the midst of the fight. And it's not that I don't love fights like Corrales Castillo 1 or Rios Alvarado 1, where it's kind of batshit crazy from the start. It's, it's almost, I mean, nothing's Hagler Hearns, but it's almost like we're on from the start. Here we go. This is a war. When you rewatch Gaddy Ward 1, it's always surprising that there's some dialogue scenes before they bang. If you understand where I'm going. Okay. Thank you. I mean, do you want to go where I go? That's the question. Remix. Thank you for supporting this remix. All right. You need a little bit of this Java, Zoe? No? All right. BC, I just learned about Bo versus Galata brawl, 1996, Madison Square Garden. Any insight on it? I saw they fought a second time. Any other boxing brawls that come to mind? Great question. It's like this is the wheelhouse of Rafe Bartholomew. So no one will ever forget seeing that either live or seeing the immediate highlights and reaction to it. I remember I was in high, so that's my senior year of high school. My family and I had to go to some out-of-state wedding in suburban New York, and we're staying at a hotel. And I remember on the local news of that area, they're like, tonight in boxing in Madison Square Garden, watch this. And you're just like, oh my God. And my dad and I just be like, yeah. And then to hear Rafe tell his epic story of watching that fight live with his dad, and they're picking up Lou Duva's heart attack fallen body, and they're trying to carry it through a brawl up the stairs, and Lou's sliding off, and they're like losing their mind, half laughing, half like, what the hell is happening here? I mean, that's 90s boxing, by the way. Like, you got that, you got the Fan Man, which was its own thing. You've got the bite fight. Like, the very small amount of memories I have with a non-sports dad watching live sports with my dad, certain Super Bowls or rare fights, like the first super fight I watched, the Ray Leonard Marvin Hagler one, because my dad got caught up in it at work and bought the pay-per-view and had a party. Like, great moments in growing up, right? The bite fight, my dad lost his stuff, screaming at the TV, F Tyson, they need to put him in jail right now. That's it's just like, I'm like, my dad doesn't care about sports ever, and he's losing his mind. That's what Bo Galata brawl was. And you add in George Foreman on the telecast trying to counsel people away from rushing in the ring, because it literally was like the black fans of Riddick Bowe against the Polish community, thinking we've got a Polish heavyweight champion on our hands in Andrew Galata. It's crazy that Galata dominated both of those fights and got disqualified and lost both of those fights, and both turned into a brawl afterwards. The second one, not nearly as bad as the first, of course, but the first one had, the second one wasn't really like a riot or a brawl. There was like skirmish in the ring, but the first one had Bo's manager with the cell phone going to the corner and hitting Galata on top of the head. And it really just had, in hindsight, because I think we've all seen the legendary, the great HBO Sports Legendary Nights documentary series that they did back in the early 2000s on some of the greatest fights in their history. And that's the episode to watch to get like the true backstory on both of these guys, the fight and everything. But watching that and seeing how it's kind of like a random night on the schedule where Madison Square Garden was understaffed security wise and didn't have the police presence as normal for a heightened fight like that, of that level, between two fan bases like that. And it showed in the way that the riot broke out. I mean, that's some of the scariest, like, fan on fan 8 versus 8 brawls in the crowd across all the laid out seats that we've seen in this type of thing, right? Do any other boxing brawls come to mind? So Rafe has a particular fetish with this, and that's why I loved the word. Rafe's my favorite boxing writer, always has been. Although I do love me some Eric Raskin. Shout out, okay? Maccabee Games 1994 doubles champion tennis. Shout out to Eric Raskin on that. But Rafe, when he worked at The Athletic, kind of specialized in like oral history of ridiculous fights, and and did that one that was in South America where they threw all those chairs in the ring. And I love crazy moments like this. I remember even covering an NBC Sports Main Events fight in Connecticut when Curtis Stevens knocked out Elvin Alaya, and then Alaya's brother jumped from the crowd, jumped in the ring and jumped on Curtis's back. And I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be this huge brawl. And then they put it out. It didn't. But there's always that heightened energy, like something could spill over from the outside into the ring in a lot of these big fights. And it's what we love and hate equally. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, we hate it when it gets dangerous and it spills over like this, even though this is a very memorable, the Bo Galata one, very memorable because of just how much it made us have that palace brawl. Like, oh shit, this is levels I didn't think we'd get to here. Holy crap. That's as much the fuel for being a boxing fan on the level of the degeneracy you have to endure to stay a boxing fan for this many decades and get through these different eras of ridiculousness. it's nights like those, as much as Gotti Ward 1 and Corrales Castillo, and insert the action fight that just grabbed you and made you an addict for life. It's the ridiculousness and mayhem that you're like, this is pro wrestling stuff, and it's happening in real life. Like, just to the Riddick Bowe, Elijah Tillery, their first fight that ended with karate kicks and them both going over the top rope, and Rock Newman, Bowe's manager, taking the cell phone to the head. I mean, it's just wild shit. This is wild. It's wild. You never forget that stuff. It's great. Okay. Two Chang's Zab versus Mayweather was the last boxing brawl. Was that really like the last boxing brawl? Oh, you're saying that you watched Wrestling My Grandpa Live was fun. That was a wild, bro. That could have been way worse. And they put that fire out and then went on with the fight, right? But there were some great moments of that. I mean, Team Judah, wild. Team Judah always wild, but that was a wild moment. Two Changs. Yeah, so many of us two Changs, whether it's our dads or our grandpas, or insert male role model, and obviously they don't have to be male, it could be female, but I actually had that conversation with Jim Lampley in Vegas last year at one of those PBC pay-per-views, because he always tells the origin story that his obsession with boxing became when his father died when he was young. His mom didn't really know how to fill that void, so she turned on boxing and said, like, this is what your dad would have been watching right now. Sit here and watch this. And he turns it on, and it's some great badass championship fight. And it's just like he's chasing that back in the connection to his dead father for life. You know what I mean? And it really is crazy how so many of us are boxing fans because of those male role models in our lives. And to some degree, that was our best times together, or our only great times, or what have you. Now, I've got a great dad and have a great relationship with him, but like watching post-jail Tyson pay-per-views with him on the illegal box and making it like a date, that's some of the greatest moments of my life. There's no question about it. So it ties in perfectly. Lord of the Pies. Yeah, biggest brawl I've seen to this day. There really is. In like super elite American boxing, there's not really a comparison to this level of like palace brawl mayhem in boxing. It's wild. I mean, outside of these lower level ones that have happened in like South America or what have you, like those, you'll remember those too. But damn, to happen on like big time American pay-per-view, it's always that you're always towing that line of danger with this. I mean, that's what UFC 229 was. That could have been way worse. You've heard me preach about that before. Not like you care. All right. Let's see this. James Johnson supporting. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being in here, Double J. Okay. Ellen W. Yes, brother. Ellen, I don't know if you were here earlier when we updated on Reggie, but hopefully surgery next Wednesday for the teeth. The respiratory pneumonia thing he's fighting it, but we're getting closer. Got a better bill of health yesterday. So we're fighting the good fight. And this guy, he's too young. He's too spiteful. He's going to fight through this. All right. You got to lean on whatever strength you've been given. For Reggie, it's just like Reggie's the main character in everyone's life, in his mind. It's an incredible way to live your life. March of 34. That's an interesting name. What is the origin story behind that? Thank you, by the way. Hey, BC, you and Luke Thomas said Canelo is the number one draw in the U.S. for boxing. Who would be the next four boxers in terms of pay-per-view draw? And hope Reggie is doing good. Thank you. So you're kind of asking who are the biggest brands in American boxing, I think. Are you keeping it to American boxing, or are you keeping it overall? Things have changed a lot, because the metric that we used to use for this was North American pay-per-view buys. And the reason why that distinction matters, I've been told by friends at Showtime back in the day, is because the pricing is so different. When there'd be a Mayweather fight, you'd be pricing it at almost $100 in the States, be like $20 in the UK. So it's hard to equate all that the same. So they used to only count North American buys. But now with streaming and the ability to market pay-per-views all over, the pay-per-view numbers have changed. Obviously, so has the illegal streaming, which has completely cut through that side of the business, making it even harder for us to truly gauge. We certainly can gauge in boxing by live gates, even though, like UFC, a lot of these live gate records are achieved because these fights are at casinos and you're rate or at T-Mobile and you're just jacking up the ticket prices, and it almost doesn't matter because it's so connected to the casino industry and hospitality, and it, they get purchased in some form. So it is hard to really have a clue in this era. Also, you have to take into account social media. Like when Ryan Garcia fights, even Oscar has tried to argue that fight with Haney didn't do a ton pay-per-view wise, but it was on everyone's mind. It crossed over. You know what I mean? Like it's just because of that social media connection. So Canelo is still the biggest draw, in my opinion, biggest star in the sport, in my opinion, still, and definitely like the biggest draw. Like he proved that last year. He fought two opponents who they certainly had a level of name value and unbeaten records in Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, but they weren't the toughest fight next for him and weren't, people that were going to drive home the possibility of like two A sides coming together. It wasn't that. And yet he's still doing strong pay-per-view numbers for this era and, selling that out. And that was the lament. That's really the only lament I have of Canelo signing with Turkey. Just that 3 of the next 4 will be in Saudi. And I know how much it means to the Mexican and Mexican American community when he fights in Vegas. You see it, or Texas, you see it. And that not to have that as like the backbone for American boxing is going to be interesting. Who fills that? Now to get closer to answering your question here, March, Tank Davis, they've done a great job with him from the standpoint of identifying large city centers and putting his fights all over the US, and he's selling out arenas and driving, a decent consistent pay-per-view movement. And he's got to be up there. Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, and maybe by extension, Alexander Usyk, or it should be, because in terms of what he's accomplished, they also are right in, the second place, third place of this conversation, in my opinion. AJ is his own star, and I think at times was the biggest star in the sport for brief windows before the defeats caught up. You see that when he does 90,000 in the soccer stadium and comes out with a flamethrower lighting up AJ, right? Like that was pretty awesome when AJ was on top in that regard. But I think overall the Ryan Garcia type of turn, in terms of like it's changing it, because he has Jake Paul social media, a YouTuber level of social following, but is a real fighter for the most part. Those are the guys that it's going to be hard to fully equate the value of their brand, but it matters. It ups the ante. It raises the heat level. It brings the conversation to different markets in different areas. Two Chang says Tank has a $22 million gate versus Ryan and $14 million versus Frank. Yeah, that's not nothing. That's not that Tank moves product. So you go Canelo, maybe AJ 2. It's kind of hard. Like I said, it's hard to like specifically identify it depending on what you're leaning on. I mean, Tyson Fury is a massive draw. They can fill a stadium against almost anybody. Very rare at the top of the sport that can happen. AJ can do that. I mean, I'm surprised Carl Froch got to that level where he's doing 80K. That's speaks to the greatness of his sustained career and always looking to step up and face the next guy in the toughest challenge. So I'm not surprised at 46 that he's like, I'll end this Jake Paul thing if you just say yes. That would be a competitive fight at this point, wouldn't it? It's hard to tell whether it's. We used to talk about it with Oscar. Oscar should fight Jake. That's the perfect old guy opponent for him. Then you're like, at some point, you're like, these guys are too old. Especially Oscar. But for all the advantages that they would certainly have in experience and still have power and technique and all that stuff, they're old men. And it is kind of, if you have to book these ridiculous Jake fights from the standpoint only of making the most competitive, interesting fight, then I think Carl Froch is actually one of the more interesting ones you can make in that regard, in terms of like, let me see who would actually win this, putting strength versus strength right now, given everything. Not that I want it. Not that I need it. No. Alan W. Thank you, brother. Ring Magazine reported Dubois is sick and might be replaced. No, don't say, do you mean that? Is this a real ass fact? Al, thanks for Alan W. Thanks for getting our back here. Did you hear anything about Dubois? Just a rumor. Okay. This is tough because when Schofield pulled out, it was the idea of like, could this giant amazing tree fall before our eyes before this greatest card ever. And I'm not cheering against it. I'm not cheering for these injuries. I'm not cheering for this to fail. This is great for boxing, but this Dubois thing is not good here. Let's see. Let me look it up. Breaking from Sky Sports News, Daniel Dubois is sick and currently being evaluated by a doctor. It's understood a replacement is being pursued if he is unable to move forward with his defense against Joseph Parker on Saturday. Wow, folks. Wow, that's happening in real time. This ain't good. Now it's not gonna the fight card's not gonna fall apart. People aren't gonna stop watching. We got better BFB vol. You could remove 2 or 3 of these, and we're still looking at an insane day tomorrow. But this really matters to keep the top of the heavy. It almost feels like the heavyweight division is now closed because Usyk came in, beat Joshua twice, beat Fury twice. But Usyk saying, I'm around, guys, for 2 more, and one of them, it might be a UFC guy, so maybe really 1 more. We need Dubois to fight this. We need him to defend if it's him against Parker, and then the Usyk one for all 4 titles once again. I don't know where this is going. I'm trying to stay off with it too. Okay, Ariel Hawani is saying Parker versus Dubois is off per sources in Riyadh. This is on Ariel's Twitter account. Dubois has a health issue, Ariel says. They are actively trying to find a replacement, but the card is in 2 days. I'm told the presser, which was supposed to start shortly, has been pushed back. Good gosh. Good gosh. All right. It's disappointing. It's not the end of the world. It sucks. Alan. Oh, we got the LNW confirmation. He is out. Yep. Well, we just read. Thank you, Alan, for dishing that one out. That. Yeah. I know, Matthew Garrett. I know, brother. Okay. I know. Yeah. It takes some of the luster out because Dubois was nearly the fighter of the year last year. What an escalation point. Oh, now we got a rejuvenated former champion Joseph Parker. And like I said, Usyk waiting on the other end to go undisputed. And by the way, Dubois can win that one. He can. If the Dubois from the AJ fight showed up against Usyk anytime, he could win that fight. Derek Chisora made Usyk uncomfortable in ways that no other heavyweight has been able to do. It's wild. That's why there's no boxing math. Dr. Tu Cheng speculating. I wonder if it's norovirus. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, brother, what's going on over there. I don't know their immunization history, nor do I care. But damn, man, damn. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna find just a body for Parker, whatever. They should probably just not even refill that hole. I mean, let's be honest here, because we're a couple days away. If we're still getting better BFB vol 2. And we didn't get anything else, we're still winning. This is only, by the way, and this is where you got to shout out Turkey. This is a $30 pay-per-view. This fight card, before these fall apart, $30 pay-per-view. Wow. But we get that main event. We're still going to get Virgil Ortiz Madrimov in a sneaky potential fight of the year type fight. Yes. Still going to get Shakur in a showcase. All right. Still going to get Big Bang Zhang against Kabayel. Like, okay. Adames Shiraz is interesting as heck. Buatsi, Callum Smith, no one's talking about yet, is very interesting. We're still plus money here in a big way. But let's not try to act like it doesn't hurt. All right? Let's not try to act like damn, here comes the man. Hot. He might not be coming. Triple D looks like not coming, according to Ariel Hawani's sources. So, damn. Any other bad news you want to share? Okay. Dustin Kilburn. Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. Odds we get another high court. Damn, I want another one, I really do. I mean, look, I've said it for a year now. Like, the next escalation for us is getting access to our own studio beyond the one we rent on Mondays, Metal Arc, which is great for our Monday reaction shows. I love the vibe. I love what that show has become. Originally feeling like, it's not the same in the studio. It's not the Orchids of Combat. You know what I mean? It's not our playhouse. I've come to really like the vibe and feel of having a little more serious, until we get into the DMs and the shit, but I think you know what I'm saying here. So what we need next is the idea that we could have a space that's our own. If we got that, then you could see things like Fight Companions and Room Service Diaries Couch and whatever you could conceive like this. But until we get that, we don't have this, or we don't have a chance at this. That's a recurring thing that needs to, like, you need the right topic and the right time, which is crazy because the first two we really didn't like prep or talk much beforehand about how it would go. And I think the only strategic change that happened between the first two was Chuck was a little tougher on us. The second one, rightfully so. And also, my character evolved into a full-time British accent, which was, more like yeah. So I think that I think that second episode is a work of art. The first episode is like accidentally funny at times. The second episode is a work of art. But you got to have the right timing and the substance. It's just got to be the perfect storm, I think, for as random as those first two came out. I want to do it right. All right. That's the thing. I don't want to do half-ass stuff. We don't have the same budget we used to, but we're not dead. We are moving upwards. It is happening. We just signed contracts. Like we're making things happen. Yeah, you got to be honest. 9:15 a.m. Card went from A+, like the ultimate A+, like A++, to B+. Well, let's not get crazy here. I mean, we're still. I mean, yeah, B+ in comparison to the original 7 fights and the combined intrigue that they brought. Yes. But in terms of like an actual grade, it's still like an A-. Are you kidding me? I mean, come on. It's still insane. It's still unbelievable. I mean, if you kept the incredible main event, dropped all the other fights, and then put Ortiz Madrimov as the co-main, I think we would still. I mean, I think people would actually might prefer that more. There is something to be said about, even though I like it as a broadcaster, I like when I'm tasked with being on a fight card. Even though it's easier, obviously, if you're doing just, like on Showtime when I'd be on the championship level, we do 3 fights, that was it. It's different when you on some other ones where you're calling main card fights and prelims. When I did the UFC fight card in Dublin, which was so much fun to work and intense in a good way. We called like 8 or 9 fights, and it was like they do in UFC, bring the same intensity in fight 1 for fighters A and B of fight 1 that you would the main eventers. But maybe sometimes we have too many televised main card, undercard fights on these boxing broadcasts, especially sometimes in lower quality, where it's like, could you do more in the build-up and preservation of fans? If you're saying literally this great fight that I think you would love to get into our sport is going to happen, the broadcast starts at 9, let's say, or 10. There's going to be one fight before it, but it'll be like really interesting, and it'll have a guy about a prospect for the future or something, and then we're home with the main event, and you're going to be entertained. I don't know how many we keep when it's like, what time's that cool fight you were telling me? Oh yeah, fight card starts at 8, but then we don't add in there, by the way, the main event will not start until at least 12:45. Like that's not gonna do it at that point. So, but the goal isn't always, or the goal is not typically. I mean, it is for the promoters, but it's not typically always about like, let's plan for the future. It's not quite as bad as Dana White always says, where we do a boxing going out of business sale every night. I mean, that's not accurate, but yeah. Okay, there we go. Thanks for playing. 9:15. Thank you. Yeah, Alan dropped that in earlier. Here comes Gotti back. What a line. We talked about this the last chat, how this fight in particular may have had the most combined one-liners that bring like that combination of goosebumps and like, I can't control my legs anymore. I'm so excited just thinking about this fight, because that call was, I mean, it just so perfectly encapsulated the moment. How many moments did that happen in this fight? How many of these calls? How many? Yeah. Here comes guy. You got to go to the body, son. That's not like a regular. It's a body shot. It's not like a regular shot. I mean, Emmanuel Stewart was out of his mind. And then to hear, I hope you all, because, remember HBO did that great Legendary Nights thing in the early 2000s, then never did them again. And for years, everybody's complaining and saying, you got to do that again. You got to do that again. And then on the flip side, we'd go to Showtime and be like, you got to do that for the great Showtime fights. And I remember there were times where the pushback was a lot of these fights, Don King owned them, and he charged like insane prices to use them in these type of situations. And that made it hard. I can understand that to a certain degree, but at least HBO got the band back together one more time, and they did that Gotti Ward trilogy that coincided with Gotti's Hall of Fame induction and Ward being there. And that episode is so good to further this conversation that we're having here, but particularly for that spot where they run the highlight of Jim Lampley going, "Stop it, Frank! You can stop at any time. Frank Cappuccino's gonna let him go." That might be the biggest goosebump moment. And to hear Lampley in that documentary be like, I was out of control. The moment was out of control. It's like, it was like Al Pacino in that Courtroom late 70s classic movie. What was it called? Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about. You're out of order. This whole court is all over. What the hell movie was that? Never can remember. Never can pull the trigger. And Justice for All, maybe. All right. Levi Messinetti. Yeah. Leafy. All right, here we go. What's the right age to put your kids onto Adam Sandler movies? The first movie I remember consciously watching with my dad was Terminator 2. Damn. All right. Get after that. It depends how you're raising them. I mean, obviously, we don't have to turn this into parent hour, but these Sandler movies are going to have some inappropriate layers to them. Do you want your kids? Are you okay with your kids hearing? It's always weird. Like, I feel like families that have multiple kids, whatever sort of level of preservation they had on the impact of music and movies and stuff like that for the first generation, by the time kid 3 and 4 comes out, they're like, yeah, whatever, just go do it. Here's our code to the Playboy channel on the box, just whatever you have to do. But probably the middle school years. Okay, there you go. I don't know, but then again, you could probably show Happy Gilmore to any fourth grader and they'll lose their mind. And so yeah, it's up to you, really. I mean, I can't, I was allowed to watch whatever when I was small, and I don't know if that's necessarily positive, but yeah, my kids, they don't watch anything that's bad. They watch Mr. Beast. I mean, what the hell's, what's going on here? It's just a different life. It's a different life. All right, this is Two Changs. Thank you, and I didn't find out where you were moving. I missed it in the chat, but best of luck, Two Changs. All right. Funniest SNL spinoff movie. Great question. He asks, is it Blues Brothers? Is it Wayne's World? Or is it Tommy Boy? The correct answer is Tommy Boy. But I also think, like, is that really a spinoff? Like, what's the true definition of spinoff? To me, the true definition of an funniest SNL movie would be, it's a movie based on an SNL segment. That would fit the description for Wayne's World, Blues Brothers, Coneheads, right? But taking prominent SNL actors and just having them, and even pair up with SNL alumni like Black Sheep and Tommy Boy for David Spade and Chris Farley, is that of the same ilk? Night at the Roxbury, says Mora 503. Yeah. Great answer. That's a SNL movie. That's a spin-off of an actual segment. So if we're going to stay pure to that, Two Changs, and I think we should, I'm going to offer you Wayne's World. And it's not like those are masterpieces, even though I love them both so much. But the first one was like, I mean, it was great. Seeing that in the theater, being an SNL super fan at that point in my middle school years, and knowing the history of the show, having watched, certain characters, or, when I was even super small, Wayne's World, I remember feeling like it was like a graduation. Like they took it and it worked and it mattered and it took the characters and the thing to the future, Sometimes though, you'll see elements of, like, Mike Myers is a great example. You'll see portions or jokes he used on SNL pushed into his movies, like How I Married an Axe Murderer. Was that what it was called? Which is such an underrated Mike Myers classic. So I Married an Axe Murderer. Thank you. What a great one-liner movie that one is. A lot of like bits from SNL that he took and rebranded in that. But to answer your question, it's Wayne's World. I do respect the Blues Brothers thing and the genre and the movie. I mean, they had an album. They were doing live concerts. Like, that was pretty badass too. That's actually much more accepted mainstream than Wayne's World maybe ever was, to be fair, but it's also a different time. Yeah. All right. Signature Sounds is a big supporter of this podcast. Thank you very much. Dubois out now too. Damn, Saudi cuisine is worse than gas station food. So yeah, I get the parallel that a couple of these comments are trying to connect here. That is Floyd Kid Schofield's the real reason, whatever that is, that he's out. Is it now consistent with why Dubois is sick? Is it a food issue out there? Is somebody unvaccinated making out mouth to mouth with everyone? You know, what's happening here? I don't know. Whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that's a editorial on Saudi cuisine. Haven't been there yet. Who knows? Maybe. I don't know. Almost went there before Christmas for Usyk Fury 2 for some work I was going to do potentially, but it didn't work out in the end. Haven't crossed over. Don't know if I ever will. That's got to be a long ass flight, right? I'm willing to. I'm saving whatever endurance is needed for a long haul flight to not feel like you're dead at the end, or to make it feeling like you're dead at the end, like that. The way that John Anik looks when he arrives in Perth and got like sandbags under his eyes, you look like you just held hostage for 3 days. If I'm going to do that, it's going to be for Japan. So that's why my heart really did break when Ryan Garcia pulled out of that kickboxer exhibition, because I was going to be in Tokyo with Mauro Ranallo. That'd be pretty awesome. Yeah. All right. We're still alive over here. We're still pumping it out. I swear. All right, here we go. Jay Allen back at it. Thank you. Gotti Ward 1, round 9. Yeah. So if you had asked me, and you didn't, by the way, but if you had asked me, BC, what is your favorite round of all time? Don't ask me what's the best round of all time, because the best round of all time is round 1, Hagler Hearns, and I don't want to hear any complaints or differences, right? Yes, I could also make an argument for, I believe, round 10. Is it round 10 or is it 9? I think it's 10 of Bo Holyfield 1. Hell yeah. And basically rounds 1 through 7, 9, and 10, and 11, and no, it ended in 10. Corrales Castillo 1 had so many round of the year possibilities. It's just insane. But round 9 of Gotti Ward 1 is the most epic 3 minutes of like Rocky movie theater, right? And the ebbs and the flows and the announcers losing their freaking mind. And this fight was in Connecticut. This fight was like 60 minutes away from where I was living at the time. And I didn't go. I didn't like, did I know about it? I knew of the guys. I knew of the ilk at that time, but that was a stretch in the early 2000s when I was not in on boxing beyond the extreme highest pay-per-view level. And really regret not seeing a lot of that live when it happened. Ended up seeing it 2 years later when I fell head over heels back into it. But that happens. And that's one of my favorite tropes that I always abuse and overuse because I love it. The he had no business getting up line. That is always attributed back to the part of box. Well, a big part of being a enduring boxing fan is a love for that inspirational jolt that you get watching someone overcome pain and discomfort and challenge, with their life on the line and so much money in their career and their family watching. And these people show character that you would think you would only be able to have if like you arrived at your house and it was burning and you had 1 minute to get your family members out. Yeah, I think I'd turn into a track star and be able to adrenaline lift anything in that moment, right? These people at the highest, brightest stage pull these inspirational feelings out of you that are just like, oh my God, if they can do that, what the hell can I do? Darren Barker, no business getting up against Wash Giel. Yet when he was on his knees after that body shot knockdown in Atlantic City, he saw his dead brother appear in the ring and like motion for him to get up. Good Lord, you kidding me? Okay, maybe that explains that one. But the body shot, also, no one gives Marcos Maidana credit for getting up from that round one body shot against Amir Khan. Let that be noted as well. That was a knockout punch, and that dude just got up, okay? But the one God he endured from Ward is just insane. It's perfect, and that guy is known for that. That guy's the closer. He's Mariano Rivera. If he comes in and throws the cutter and it lands on your spleen or gallbladder or whatever, the fight's over. Doesn't matter if you're up 9-1. And in the high point of this epic all-time great fight that is my favorite fight of all time, because there's so much insane character being shown at every level. You have an all-time great refereeing performance from Frankie Cappuccino. I mean, just he's got attitude. Hey, no, the fight ain't over. Get over. Maybe the greatest call ever. Although I'll put Steve Albert and Al Bernstein for Corrales Castillo 1 in this conversation. Thank you. How about Barry Tompkins too? And some of those 80s mountaintop moments, some of those, how do you like it? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But Gotti getting up here, and then that round only continuing to have these ebbs and flows. It is the round. Why I love round 9 so much is built around that moment, which is similar to the moment in Holyfield Bo 1 in round 10, where Evander is just taking a beating and gets dropped and drool coming down his face, and he looks like he's dead. And they restart the round and he rallies back to hurt him. I mean, those are just like, damn, right? Like Marab against Maraish. You know what I'm talking about here? No? All right. Wow. Yeah, he's out, Al. I mean, he's out. Dubois out. Unbelievable. It happens though in this game, okay? What do you got? Signature sounds. Oh yeah, we hit that hard. Yeah, you're right. You might be right. This is from the Forging Faith podcast. Hey, thanks for the support. BC brother in Christ, we love you. Thank you. All right. Shout out to Team JC. That's what I'm talking about. What's the next step for MK? And how can we rail as the donks? Jesus rode in on a donk too. He did. You're right. He didn't tap either. Did not tap. Help you achieve that next step. We're here because we believe in you guys. That's really nice of you. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast and for the kind words right there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much you guys can do outside of liking, subscribing, telling your friends, the typical thing. As we continue to grow there, we're building really good relationships in the sponsorship realm, which is a huge part of this. And I really think, who we're extended to, All the Smoke Fight, Brian Daly, Andre Ward, Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson, all those guys. Now you got Akin Barak there. I think there's going to be a lot of potential there for us to grow by proxy of being in this roster and this family. So I think it's going to happen naturally, but just stick with us. I mean, look, it's been a hard road, and we'll piss each other off and piss you off, and maybe Luke will raise his voice, and maybe I'll interrupt him 50 times, but we're still coming after it. We're trying to be as honest as possible at all times, even though it's weird. It's like a weird dance. It's like I'm trying to get jobs from the same people I'm criticizing. It is, it's where it's at. Two turntables. Get yourself a microphone. Thank you very much. Continue to just support us. All right, believe in us, and we're the key to this industry, this ride that I'm on, is also the key to life. Yes, you can tie it to a speech from the movie Rocky Balboa if you want, but it's really not about the wins in life. It's about, in my opinion, the comebacks, the survivals, and that's this podcast too. It's about the fact that we didn't stay down. We kept fighting. I don't know if we made all the right decisions post Showtime. We tried our best, but we didn't go away for too long. And that motivates me. That excites me, because it's a wild business out there. Things the faucet can get shut off out of nowhere. Like you can be on top of the MK world and then it's gone. So 9:15 a.m. Thank you. Did Dubois get? Yeah, we got to find out who his masseuse was, and did that masseuse work for Snack? I mean, I think that's the only, or was that one of Robert Kraft's? That's interesting stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I'll have what they're having. Thank you. Okay. Two Changs, I will not be watching hockey. Well, should I? I mean, I nah. No, I'll tell you what I'm doing tonight. Interviewing Lamont Roach Jr. I'm excited about that because that guy wants smoke. He wants it. He wants it. It's pretty damn. I popped for confidence. The guy's confident as heck. Okay, there you go. Papa, we talk about boxing. Yeah, we are. We are, Colin Robinson. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes we do that. This is earlier. Yeah, Alan, Rings Magazine reporting Dubois sick. Thank you for supporting us. I don't like this. I don't like this. Alan just hit me with the best one. This is the one I tried to paraphrase, this Emmanuel Stewart quote from Gotti Ward 1. Thank you, Alan W. We dream of fights like these, and seldom do they live up to expectations. But this is even more than we can dream of. Emmanuel Stewart, just poetic, right? Just one. I mean, the thing about Emmanuel is he wasn't at like Larry Merchant's a wordsmith. Like he's an old, even now, like the times I've seen him publicly in the last 5 years, as he's what is he 90 or mid 90s? I don't, at this point, he's a little bit, delayed on the delivery, thoughtful, but when he delivers the answer to your question, whether you're interviewing him on a podcast or just chatting with him, it's like the lead to the Sunday column in the Times, right? It's like so poetic and it just kind of, Max Kellerman's got a little bit of that in him too. Emmanuel was like, obviously he was in the chair because of his reputation and his knowledge of fighters as a great trainer, but I really loved the temperament and delivery that he brought to the job too. If we look at that as a skill and an elite element. So when he would speak and get emotional, right? Like he'd get out of pocket, out of character. It was so real. And that's what I loved about it. Ultimately, it wasn't an act. We are talking about boxing. There we go. T-Bone 303. T-Bone. Yeah. Is that Delmore? That's not Delmore. No. Okay. BC, have you had a chance to check out that new boxing game called Undisputed? Actually, really fun. Not sure if you're a gamer, but definitely fun to play. So I am a dad gamer, meaning I frolic daily in the Fortnite forests, and my kids bought me UFC 5 for Christmas, and that was awesome. And I'll mess around and create a Midwestern looking, light heavyweight who by the end of his career will be covered in ridiculous tattoos by the end, because there's a system, if he wins, he gets a new tattoo. That's the motivation level to get him and me through the training you have to go through in between fights. I just want to fight, no more dialogue. I just want to bang Tui. Okay. Thank you. So I was really excited about this game because the last time boxing games mattered kind of coincided with me getting back, my 2004 return to extreme level fandom of boxing, but at a level that is just still unsatiated today. Thank you. But back then it was even crazier. I mean, I was using all of my single mid-20s income, which wasn't much, to buy old DVDs of catching up on the years I missed. I was obsessed. So when I'm also playing EA Sports Fight Night, you know what I'm saying, with Hopkins on the cover, and I could take Winky, I felt like I could beat anybody with Winky right, just because I get right on you with that quick jab, and the defense was so great. I was super excited. It's taken forever, though, for this thing to finally come out. And then Todd Grisham, who is the voice of it, and I was really excited, he gave me a code to download it. It was like one of the ones that they give out to media to try it, and it won't work. I don't know if it's my old, I don't know. It didn't happen. I do want to try it. I've seen mixed reviews. I've seen some really good and some, but you get that with everything. I do want to try it. T-Bone also liked Undisputed more than Fight Night. Interesting. You do? Really? Fight Night was tremendous. Damn. It's fun. People that don't like it suck at the game. Is also okay. All right, I'll take that. Fight Night did used to be the best 9:15. Actually, shout out to that Sega Genesis game. I've mentioned it before. It was originally Evander Holyfield boxing, and it became Legendary Heavyweights, but it was basically the same game, just with a better all-time great roster, and you could create your own fighter from scratch. And also they had the legends, and that was like, obviously a game will hit and it could be incredible, but 2 years later, it's like playing a dinosaur. When that game was at its peak, it was like, this is the first boxing game that like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out was amazing in its own lane, But in terms of side-by-side boxing, this took it to a whole nother level, in this guy's opinion, okay? But now you got me here talking about Sega Genesis from the early 90s. It was inevitable. I know it. It was, say it, feel it. It was inevitable. All right, let's put this thing to bed. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. Got a couple more signature sounds. Thank you. Thoughts on Lee Michaels' self-titled LP from 1969. Is that in your vinyl crate? It is not. It is not. But I will guarantee you this. I will listen to it and get back to you. And I mean that, signature sounds, all right? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the support here. All right, Alan, what do you got for me here? What do you got for me? That's the quote. Amazing, amazing. All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being awesome. Thank you for supporting this ridiculous podcast of one middle-aged man in his basement, just letting the diary of a madman run wild across screens everywhere. But I hope you're doing well. Thank you for everybody that supported the show. Just showing up means you support, all right? Because that's all we got to do each day. Some days we're just showing up, and that's okay. But you got to get up. You got to get out of bed. You got to show up. You got to take one more step forward. You can do it, all right? Let's do it. Anything you want, all right? It's possible. It's possible. Anything. Me watching Bastards of Baseball on Netflix because I promised Alan W. It's possible, and it might happen tonight. And it just might happen tonight. I'm overdue on that. It's just my library book is to choose your own adventure. I chose the wrong path. All right. That's it for today, though. But take care up here. Believe in yourself. Check me out about a week and a half on Prime Video. We're going to do that MK Friday. Luke Thomas live chat, I think, is starting soon. So what a day. What a day for MMA, right? A lot going on in this world. Shout out to Daniel Dubois. Hopefully he'll recover. Same thing with Kid Schofield. I don't think I got anything else to plug, but yeah. Peace out. Thank you. No, really. Thank you.